Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I definitely didn't have myself muted for 30 seconds at the start. That definitely never happened. Absolutely. I welcome you all to my wonderful little dungeon. Let me just check. There we go. Yes, everything seems to be working properly. It's been a while, hasn't it? Quite a while. I apologize for not streaming all that much in the last couple of weeks. It's mostly been because it's been extraordinarily cold, and I have no particular desire to stream when it's -4, and I would have to burn a very large amount of gas in my gas heater to actually maintain a decent temperature. And then I start to cough because gas fumes are not particularly nice for my throat. So, yes, I much prefer streaming at a time like now when, surprisingly enough, it is pleasantly warm to the point I don't even have to wear gloves for a change. Allow me to just check everything, make sure things are correct. Yes, things are correct. Good, 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 good. It has been an interesting couple of weeks. I think that there is more than enough going on now that I can make another regular stream about material on the forum. We have things like the fantastic Momozora Sina accusations of suicide baiting and cheating, which is, just lovely. I am very surprised that Riro Ron, or whatever her name is, has not made anything else public yet. I expected that to kind of blow up by now, but evidently no. Evidently she has gotten at least somebody with some sense into her head, in their heads, to tell her to shut up for a while. There's also, of course, been the Soyjack stuff, which I considered covering at the time, but then I thought, I really don't want to give a bunch of social media addicted idiots any more attention than they, deserve, which is zero. Absolutely zero. And of course, TVA has been overtaken by the Fujoshis, which I am sure that you have all welcomed lovingly into your hearts. Dropped frames 0%. That is very pleasant. Is anybody getting buffering, by the way? Am I buffers of at the moment, or is my stream coming in clear and pure as the driven snow that is most definitely not falling in Ireland at the moment? Oh, and me. I apologize if I yawn a little bit, for I have been up quite early this morning. I had to go outside and I had to interact with people in real life. And if I was a less adjusted person, I would probably be complaining about that. But it was actually quite pleasant. I was able to go to a little cafe and have a very nice slice of cake. I love cheesecake. Nice, strong cheesecake is always very nice. And it didn't even cost all that much. Oh, good. Good to hear there's no buffering for a change. That's very nice. Maybe. Okay. Once again, YouTube is giving me completely contradictory information about how many viewers there are on concurrent viewers. Let me see. Yep. All three concurrent viewer bars that I have open are different. That's yep. Nice to know you're exactly as you were when I left you, YouTube. Let me see about. Make sure all my tabs are correct. Yes. Strong cheesecake. Yeah, there's a difference between the cheesecake you buy in the store and one you get at a decent cafe. Decent fresh cheesecake should be pretty strong overall. It should have a fairly cheesy taste rather than just being kind of fluffy sweetness, and this was quite a nice one. I find that the Polish do excellent cheesecake. There's a Polish shop in town which occasionally does homemade cheesecake, and that's really nice. Very, very strong. Nice analytics, Neil. Yeah, YouTube is bizarre. It absolutely refuses to give you consistent information. I can refresh the page and it suddenly shows me a different number, even though the previous. And I don't mean like as in one person stopped watching you, so we updated it from 15 to 16 or something. No, it changes completely, and it makes no sense. I don't understand it at all. But then again, I think that most of these systems have a quite significant data lag on them, which is irritating. But there's nothing I can do about it. Maybe when I start streaming on Kick or Rumble, I should do a Rumble stream sometime. I have been. It seems like Rumble is the refugee location. How much does a Polish cost, and why did they take? Shut up, Orion. Shut up. The Polish have definitely been increasing in price recently. They used to be the lowest tier of slave in Europe, but they've gotten a bit more picky and a bit more educated in the last 20 years. So yeah, they're approaching parity now, I think. I still remember there was a massive number of Polish people that used to live in Ireland during the so-called Celtic Tiger, when the Irish economy was ridiculously strong. I mean, it's still pretty strong, but it used to be insanely strong. But when the Celtic Tiger ended, they all left because they were all involved in the building trade. It's really depressing, actually, that Ireland built a vast number of excess houses during the Celtic Tiger, and when the Celtic Tiger ended, most of those houses went unsold and practically went derelict. There was a guy in the local village, actually, who built something like 20 huge houses with thatched roofs, and like 2-story thatched roofed houses that were, I'd say, priced at around 1.5 million each. And he also built a huge inn. I think over 100 people could easily have stayed in this inn, and it was also thatched. And when the Celtic Tiger ended, he lost all of those properties. Not a single one of them sold. And because thatched roofs do not last all that long, within about 5 years, they were completely and totally derelict. They had been broken into by looters and homeless people and everything. So they were completely ruined. Ironically, about another 10 years further on, somebody actually bought up the shells of them once the economy started to recover, and they actually made them livable again. And they are actually sold now, and people live in them, and they're quite good. But the giant inn that he built, that's still just a pile of rubble. And he poured tens of millions into it. I think you would have to, for a building that large, enormous building, like larger than the average supermarket just in the main wing, and then like at least 30 or 40 rooms. He must have paid millions and millions to have that built. Never saw a cent of profit from it. I wonder where he is now. Hopefully dead in a ditch. Anyway, we are not going to ramble on for too long. I am quite eager to bring you the subject of today's video, which is going to be my reactions to this fascinating documentary that Cold Fusion produced about loneliness, because it touches on a great deal of things that I think are relevant in the VTuber world. We talk about parasocial women an awful lot. Also, Rai, you're here. You posted something about, I think you posted a Twitter link to people talking about debunking ideas that the reason why children are doing so poor in schools has anything to do with any other subject besides the fact they use cell phones all the time. I thought I had that open in a tab somewhere, but I think that I lost it somewhere. I always try and clean up all my tabs before I start streaming, so I don't accidentally reveal something if I ever fat finger my scenes or whatever. But if you could repost that in Discord, I'd really appreciate it, because that was pretty interesting as well. But I won't keep you waiting for too long. Let's move over to my other thing where I have it all set up. And I'm not sure how long this will take to, how loud this will come in, so we'll see. Let me just tab back over. I'll repost it in the mod chat. Thank you very much. Thank you, because that was a very interesting one. Here we go. I'm not sure actually if I'll be able to view it on Twitter, because Twitter locked my account just before we started, which was really bloody annoying. and I don't know why. Every time I go to send a DM in Twitter, it locks my account. And the annoying thing is I typed out quite a long DM to somebody, like over a paragraph or so, and because my account was locked, that DM is now lost. I really need to remember to save all my messages before I send them in Twitter, because Twitter just... I can use Twitter normally. Normal Twitter, like scrolling posts, replying to posts, all that kind of stuff, perfectly fine. No problem at all. The moment I send any DM, it asks me to solve like a captcha challenge or something to prove I'm not a spam bot, and I really don't know why. I've had my Twitter DMs open all the time, and I get no spam, no random contacts or anything on it. I don't know how prevalent like DM spam on Twitter is, but all I can say is that I am obviously far too small to have it happen to me yet. I feel left out. I feel very left out indeed. It's very sad. I am a poor little pheasant just trying to eke out a living on Twitter. Anyway, let's not keep stalling. Let's see how the audio thing comes in. Oh, just 1 second as well, by the way. Oh, yes, that was satisfying. Sorry, I had to sneeze just then. So I'm going to just play this for about 5 seconds, and then we'll see how loud it is.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion. He held his phone close, eyes searching for privacy.
Right, how did that come in? Was that loud enough? Because I can't look at my audio tab while this is running, by the way. Desktop audio. And I don't want to deafen anybody or have people listening decide that they can barely hear. React slop, my beloved. Look, I'm sorry about that. But this genuinely was a fascinating video that I really want to talk about. A bit quiet, actually. Okay, then I'll boost the level up to about there. Minus 3.5, and I'll try and get it. I'll just speak for a second. So, yep, my voice is about that loud on average. So if I turn it on and go back. All right, let's just start again. Here we go.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion. He held his phone close, eyes searching for privacy. The man scarcely noticed the subway riders around him, or the 90-year-old artist sketching his hunched frame from across the train. In the 7 decades since Alex Katz first drew the outlines of commuters on New York City's early morning trains, the chattering riders and newspapers had all but gone. In their places were people who rode alone, together, the light in their eyes reflecting the glow of their smartphone. That was a quote from the Dallas Morning News. This short imagery is something that we see and all understand, but never really think deeply about. Why does it...
I'm just curious, how many people here are old enough to remember what this guy is actually talking about? Because I remember very vividly, and like I'm 31 this year, so I remember very vividly going on buses and so on when I was a child, and everybody was talking all the time. Like, community spirit was like intense. You couldn't get on a bus without somebody, with at least 3 people all asking who you were and where you were going and talking. The only quiet people were people that brought in books. But I think there might actually be some people that are young enough by now, even watching this stream, who don't even remember a time when that happened. Because the smartphone was like 06, 07. No, it was about 08 or so. So, nah, people what? Nah, if you were watching this chat, then you would still be a minor if you don't remember smartphones. But it's just a little commentary for me that I know exactly what this guy is talking about. Anyway, I'll go back to watching.
Seem like less people are talking to each other in public? Why do we collectively prefer the dim glow of a smartphone screen? Do you remember your childhood neighborhood? Chances are, you probably felt like it was one big family. Everybody knew each other, celebrated together, and would offer help when needed.
I can agree with this.
But in recent decades, this seems like it's no longer the case. People seem to keep to themselves more. And as a side effect, people are more lonely today than ever before.
Once again, I feel like stopping right here. Yeah, Emporian said, and foreigners. I think it's also a cultural thing. We don't talk to strangers on buses in the US and foreigners. Like, that's another thing, is that what this documentary doesn't really touch on, which I think is worth talking about, is diversity. in that it very much is the case that people don't talk to each other because of the whole forced diversity thing that the world is going through at the moment. I read I watched a video about it recently, talking about how the more diverse a community is, the more isolated and more insular people are. And I see that very much in my local community as well, is that if you're in a community of all Irish people, they will talk to each other constantly, and they have very strong rapport and very strong relationships with each other. Add in one person who is not Irish, or at least not English, because the English people that live in Ireland for a long time, there's this myth in Ireland that the Irish still hate the English. That's absolute nonsense. The Irish people are very interested in English people. They love to talk to them and find out what their experiences are. So Irish and English people together, they'll talk for all time. Add in one foreign person to that group, every single person will go silent and not talk to each other. It's bizarre. It's almost magical to see it happen. You can just tell that nobody has any idea what to say any longer. Nobody wants to include them. Nobody knows what they're supposed to say. The social dynamic changes instantly. And it's the same, like my parents will remember that when large foreign communities started moving into places like London and so forth, you'd get groups, you get families or streets where every single person knew each other and nobody left their doors unlocked at night. That just ended almost immediately when mass immigration started to England. It didn't happen when the English were bringing over paid workers from, good grief, I can't remember, the Caribbean islands, because there's a lot of Caribbean islanders in England who are, I think they're called the Windrush generation, and they were all brought over on work visas to England after World War II to replace all of the young men that had gone and fought and died in World War II and to rebuild all the smashed up, broken English cities. Those people, amazingly, they integrated almost perfectly, and they have a very strong cultural link with England now, and they're very well naturalized, but anything after that, especially like the Pakistanis, especially the Muslims, the Arabs, they broke up the communities that used to exist in places in the big cities very, very effectively. Just gonna have a drink of water, sorry. Actually, I'm a fool, I can just play the video.
The number of men without any close friends has increased 5 times since 1990, and 10 times for women, though the total percentage of men feeling lonely is higher. On top of this, 3/4 of Gen Z report feeling lonely. Why have we drifted from each other? What is going on here? The trend started before the pandemic and even before smartphones, so it has to be something structural within society. But what? I've been working on this episode for many months. It's an exploration of the loneliness epidemic. In this episode, we'll see the definitions of loneliness, its origins, its causes, and who's most affected. But this episode isn't all bad news. We'll explore some very real ways to combat loneliness. This isn't the kind of video I normally do, but I think it's an important topic. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it.
I feel like commenting in advance also that the methods that he talks about for resolving loneliness are the most basic things I have ever seen in my entire life. There was also somebody on Twitter that I think I replied to who was asking, how do you figure out if somebody is friends with you? And I replied to them something along the lines of, I can't believe we live in a world where this isn't clear to people. And I think that points to a breakdown of extraordinarily fundamental social norms where people are left with no actual basis to gauge whether or not they have a relationship with other people. That extends to romance, that extends to friendship, and I'll admit I've suffered from it myself, but I'll talk about it a bit more as we get through the video. We'll continue now.
You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
Loneliness is on the rise globally, and it's being declared a health risk. A top US health expert has warned that loneliness can be as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes per day. In 2017, former US Surgeon General Vivek Murthy recognized the growing trend in loneliness based on scientific research. Vivek phrased the phenomena as the loneliness epidemic, but to understand this winding and twisting story, we have to start at the fundamentals. What does it mean to be lonely? People sometimes confuse loneliness and solitude, but the fact of the matter is, being alone and feeling lonely are not the same. You can feel lonely even though you're physically with other people, or you can enjoy solitude without feeling lonely. In a nutshell, loneliness is not always the result of being alone. It's more of a mental state of being. From a neuroscientist point of view, loneliness is actually a state of hypervigilance. It makes you feel unsafe and unsatisfied with your social interactions. It's a type of emotional pain signal. The pain is telling your brain that you need to find someone to talk to. That's what loneliness is, the difference between how much social connection you want and how much you feel you actually have.
I think this is a very relevant and accurate description of what loneliness actually is. And I think also that culturally, people are more lonely than ever because their culture does not align with each other. It's especially the case in the modern generation when social media dominates how much people's connectivity really matters. The people always seek connectivity based on shared experiences and shared understandings. But social media very much manipulates that because I'm sure even I've experienced it. I experience it all the damn time on the Discord, in that I'll say something like, I don't know what X means, or I don't know what that phrase means, and people will go, oh wow, you don't understand this? I can't believe it. And people are nice because they'll explain things to me because I'm a boomer. Am I technically a boomer because I'm 31? I don't actually know. But I think about how a teenager would be going into a random Discord of with a large number of people, or in school, or in any kind of environment where bullying and emotional manipulation are greatly exaggerated, and simply not having the tools needed to keep up with the fashion of what current thing is. If they don't know what current thing is, boomer is a state of being nowadays. Yeah, I agree with you, honestly. I absolutely agree with you. So I feel that social media has very much weaponized that idea. It's the whole don't be left out, don't be left behind, don't be seen as uncool, that has horribly affected how young people act and behave. I remember being in a Discord many years ago now, I think many years, 2016 or so, and I was in a Discord that happened to have somebody who I think was about 14 or 15 at the time, and they were very intelligent, a very intelligent young person, but the way they acted, I could already see these kind of things happening, is that they were on the ball, so to speak, at all times. They knew every modern meme and everything as it was happening and as it was trending. And at one point, I think I asked them, don't you find it completely exhausting to constantly be scrolling Twitter for the next thing that's a hit, that's the next viral thing? And they said, well, yeah, it is pretty tiring, but if I didn't know all this stuff, I wouldn't be able to talk to anyone in my peer group. They would all laugh at me. I couldn't talk to anybody in my school without... I think I don't even remember what the damn memes were now. Fortunately, I hate memes. They said that, we only talk in memes. Like, there are entire conversations that I have with people that are just memes. That we use them like a second language. And that's what we consider to be normal conversation. Again, this was a very intelligent guy who could talk to the level of somebody who was much older and more educated. He was a creative writer as well. That's why we were in a creative writing Discord together. But I could see the pain that he suffered from having these creative urges, but having absolutely nobody in his social group of his same age that would understand it, and he wouldn't mock him for it. Like, he would sometimes say, you're the only people that I can talk to about any of this, because if I shared the fact that I write with my friends, I would be immediately bullied and mocked for the kind of things that I say. And that was like 8 or 9 years ago. I hope he's doing okay, or whatever happened to him. I eventually just kind of passed out of that friend group. But it really upset me to see how this guy was, and knowing that there was nothing really I could do for him aside from just kind of say, don't give up on what makes you happy, because he really enjoyed writing. Don't let yourself fall back into the miasma of boring, unappealing, uninteresting, and unfulfilling social interaction. Because the quality was terrible. It was just sending messages to people for the sake of sending messages. Blimey, that wasn't that depressing. Let's continue, please.
It can be summed up by this line: loneliness is feeling disconnected from others, even when they're right next to you. If it's temporary, it's the equivalent of being hungry. But when it becomes chronic, that's when it starts affecting your health. Chronic loneliness can trigger a fight or flight response, and when that becomes bad enough, it becomes ingrained in our nervous system, resulting in anxiety, depression, and even anger.
Yeah, and it's also extremely counterproductive because, we know just on the forum there are some people that are obviously pretty lonely, and you go on VTuber Discords and you find people that are very lonely, but whose loneliness has become such a state that they're so frantic for contact of any sort that they come across as creepy and weird. That you give them the smallest amount of attention and they latch onto you like a drowning person, and it's like they try and drag you underneath in their desperation to get some form of social affirmation that they're actually comfortable and interested in. And I used to find those people very irritating, and I used to laugh at them a lot, and I genuinely regret doing so, because I'm sensible enough to know I can't really help them, but I've gotten to that stage where I do not want to be responsible for any further amount of misery that they experience. It's like the Nolans of this world. Nolan is very obviously a horribly lonely person. That doesn't excuse any of the stupid nonsense that he does, but you can tell that inside Nolan there is somebody who is screaming as loud as possible for any kind of positive social affirmation. He just goes about getting it in the worst way possible, and he's completely unsympathetic, miserable, and probably quite a nasty person in real life, but I can still see why he does the things that he does on a chemical level.
The pandemic poured fuel on a fire that was already burning.
Dr. Vivek Murthy, the U.S. Surgeon General, says loneliness is an epidemic, the focus of an 80-page advisory he is releasing today.
We're used to thinking about smoking and obesity as clear public health concerns.
So you're saying loneliness is comparable to smoking in terms of the detriment to your health?
Yeah, in terms of the risk that it poses for premature death, yes.
The cure, Dr. Murthy says, is not only personal change, but societal change as well. You're talking about changing the social fabric. That's been decades in the making.
It's been decades in the making, but it's also something that I'm confident that we can address if we put our mind to it and if we act together.
We'll get to more of the health effects a bit later, but for now, let's ask the question, how did we get here? Loneliness is not a new thing. It's been around for as long as humans have. Today's loneliness seems like a simple cause and effect. As society became more complex, with industrialization, urbanization, and a faster pace of life,
I'd say he almost certainly dyes his eyebrows, Murray, and a pro tip for any old women who happen to be watching this stream, it's really, really unflattering. Don't dye your eyebrows. Just let your eyebrows be your normal color, please.
People became lonely, but it's not that straightforward. Something major happened in the 1960s and 70s that became the bedrock for the Loneliness Epidemic Declaration in 2017. In Western nations, it was the social movements of the 1960s and 70s that seemed to accelerate this phenomena. A 2023 QC research piece on loneliness by Alan Greenblatt would mention that, quote, the mass social movements of the 1960s helped shift people's attention from local concerns to more national issues, end quote. In other words, local communities mattered less, and it was all about changing the national status quo. According to Alan, this eventually resulted in a, quote, decreased number of social gatherings and eroded organizational participation.
Boy, I really wonder if there was any kind of organized push for that kind of thing, and whether there was any kind of maybe infiltration of society by certain groups of people who benefit greatly by destroying these kind of gatherings and destroying people's connections with each other. I wonder if that could be the case, but I'm not noticing anything. Definitely not. Let's continue. Let's talk about that another time.
End quote. For a commentary on the cultural mood at the time, at least in the UK, you can look no further than the Beatles. According to Paul McCartney, the 1966 Beatles song, Eleanor Rigby, was a broad commentary on the social changes of the 1960s happening at the time. You can see it in the lyrics.
I'm going to get copyrights.
Quote, all the
Copyright
lonely
struck
people,
for even if you
where do they
things
all
like that,
come
aren't I?
from? All the lonely people, where do they belong? Look at all the lonely people. In the 1970s, things only got worse. This period would be famously known as the Me Decade. Why?
Yeah, again, it doesn't say that this is the same decade that all of the teachers that were trained by the communist infiltrators, that a certain person from Russia, ex-KGB agent, warned people about. That's when they graduated and started teaching, but there's nowhere.
Because a form of hyper-individualism began to express itself within society. As Yuval Levin articulates in The Fractured Republic, the 1970s saw high inflation, high crime, an explosion of single mothers, and the eroding of family structures. Why collectively care about changing the world, or even the
Can't help but notice the ethnicity of said single mother.
local community, when everyone has their own problems to deal with? The 70s saw tensions between different sects of society grow. Divorce rates would more than double between 1960 and 1980.
Yeah, among which particular ethnic groups did they double?
Society was rapidly changing, and it caused a great upheaval. From around this time, society lost its cohesive glue. People would break out from the crushing conformity and turned inwards towards the satisfaction of individual wants and needs.
What's that meme? Some things shouldn't be normalized. Yeah, we're getting into that territory right now.
People moved away from tradition and took their own paths in life. Of course, this resulted in more freedom of expression and less repression. But Levin states that the price we paid for this new freedom has been high. Quote, "We have let loose a scourge of loneliness and isolation that we are still afraid."
I love how he says "scrouge of loneliness" there. That really entertained me. It does make me wonder how much this guy actually... This Cold Fusion like massively predates AI voice generation or anything, but that is a major mistake to make. Scrouge instead of scourge.
To acknowledge as the distinct social dysfunction of our age of individualism. End quote. In other words, loneliness has thrived and evolved from our increasing individualism. Filmmaker David Hoffman speaks to Rushworth Kidder, a man born in 1944. His historically massive generation, called the baby boomers, would come to maturity in the 1960s and 70s. He describes his lived observations of witnessing the dissolving of society.
We're made for each other. There is a sense in which society matters because we're part of it and we need to participate in it. It's not going to work all by itself. And what happened in my generation, it seems, again and again, is people coming up to that realization and then just sort of something turning off. And off they drift off into sort of separate orbits, flying around as kind of unattached asteroids out there. There needs to be, it seems to me, if society is going to hold together, that sense of social cohesion in which each of us, as part of the community, says, I've got a responsibility to this. It's not a formal responsibility. It's not law. It's just that I care about this society and I'm part of this. Increasingly concerned that whatever the gravity is that holds the asteroid in orbit is just beginning to dissolve. And these people again and again are just sort of out there wandering. We never, ever in the history of the world experienced anything like the baby boom that followed World War II, and we will never experience it again. This was that sort of one-time phenomenon. And what we see in the 60s may be as simply explained as saying that's the maturing of that tremendous crush of population, which finally didn't have the elbow room, and finally needed to break out and say, I'm me.
I find his words quite interesting, but I'm also brought to something that my mother said to me in a completely different context just a few days ago, in that we were talking about population growth, and she pointed out that her grandmother had, I think, 12 children, and then her mother had 6 children. She had 3 children, and only one of her 3 children has had 2 children. So just in that 3-generation span, the number of children has dropped by a factor of almost 90%. And that's the same everywhere. And I watched the documentary called Birth Gap a few months ago about the number of children being born in Western countries. That was pretty hard, a pretty big black pill, let me tell you. That was pretty terrifying to see how the trends are.
This is all to say that the generations following the boomers grew up with strong individualism already embedded in society. Individualism came to prominence in the 1960s and 70s and never really left. There were, of course, periods where this did improve, but since the 2000s, social interaction has taken a nosedive.
Ooh, acceleration.
You see, Orson, loneliness is a disease of the spirit, and people who have it think that no one cares about them.
Are you saying that Earthlings make each other lonely?
No, sir, I'm saying just the opposite, that they make themselves lonely. They're so busy looking out for number 1, they don't have room for 2.
It's too bad everybody down there can't get together and find a cure.
But here's the paradox, sir, because if they did get together, they wouldn't need one. Isn't that Zen-like?
Ah, yes, Robin Williams, a man who was a comedian and who eventually killed himself because of how lonely he was.
Generation X and the millennials
Also
settled into a hyper-individualistic world, and by 2007, Gina Gustafsson from Uppsala University would state that society is undergoing, quote, the slow but steady weakening of shared collective identities, norms, and culture.
I wonder why.
And the concomitant rise of the ideal of the independent individual.
Again, I
End
wonder
quote.
why.
Broadly speaking, my generation, millennials, and Generation X were the most individualistic generations of all. That is, until Generation Z. You guys got the shortest end of the stick. You came of age during the explosion of the most individualistic tool known to man, during curated algorithms tailored to the desires of the individual. In other words, social media. High schools and universities are filled with people physically sharing the same space, but with every idle minute, a phone is pulled out. This is something that wasn't.
I absolutely can't believe this, because obviously when I was in school, there was no such thing as electronics in school. I don't even think that there were school computers yet, because I was mostly educated in Ireland, and at the time Ireland was immensely backwards when it came to any sort of modern technology. So there was no school, there was no computer in classroom or anything like that. And the idea that schools allow children to have mobile phones on them at pretty much all times is astonishing to me. Why would any school let that happen? I think that's a topic that I really do want to actually research and find out when and why schools started allowing children to have mobile phones in class, because that's just the most absurd concept that I can ever think of.
Even the case 15 years ago. Of course, technology isn't inherently a bad thing. It is a tool.
Also, slight correction, Robin Ann heroed because of onset Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's. Most likely he was just messed in the head. Okay, yeah, that's pretty terrible, but I mean, Robin Williams, I know he was very public about the fact that he was an extremely emotionally disturbed and distant person, because comedians have a horrifying incidence rate of mental illness. They have a huge rate of depression and all this kind of stuff. Basically, the brighter they smile on the outside, the more miserable they are on the inside. Anyway, aside from that, let's get going.
Tool. It can improve our lives, but if we strip away the benefits of convenient connection, what are we left with? A screen that separates us from the real world and the people around us. A device that consumes our attention and time. A platform that keeps us entertained, but separated.
Because somehow, even with all of our unprecedented technology, no one has yet solved what I'll call the other gamer's dilemma. That when you shut your computer screen,
This woman has the most, if either the camera is horrifyingly unflattering or she just has makeup that has been applied with very badly. It's just so thick. Her face is almost alabaster pale and her lips are this scary pop out red. I do not like that. She looks like a mannequin. That's really, really off-putting.
power down your phone, take off the VR headset.
And what the hell is that thing that she's wearing? What on earth is her outfit? That outfit is dreadful. The more I look at this person, the more I have no words. This outfit is actually disgusting to look at. I'm sorry. I feel very sorry for this person. She's trying to make a really important point that we should probably listen to, but I'm sorry. Her outfit is terrible.
There you are, alone, in your room.
Now, this is all known and common knowledge, but what's surprising is what's next. There's a hidden force that's causing people to feel lonely, and it's hardly ever talked about.
Economics. Oh, yes. I should have brought
We are
Alex on
about
for
to
this.
become a society. By the turn of the century, there will be 8 times as many people over the age of 60 and half as many kids under the age of 5. Is this the world we want? Do we want a lack of kids? Do we want a lack of ability to create households? The happiest, most prosperous, most purposeful people in America are middle-class families. And we have made a concerted decision to punch it in the gut and make it harder for that type of family formation. And we're going to lose prosperity and we're going to lose purpose.
Yeah, this is another thing and another very important aspect of the way that the economy in America and indeed the entire world is currently structured is that in order to sustain any kind of reasonable lifestyle, both partners in a relationship have to be out working. So how on earth are you going to have time for children when that is hanging over your head all the time? I know several couples in my community that are of prime childbearing age who have been married for like 3 or 4 years, but they have no time for a family because they are out working, both of them. Every hour that God sends, as you'd say in Ireland, is that they have no time for. They work 9 to 5 every single day, both of them. And they actually make a very solid amount of money together, but even so, they are just barely ahead of the curve, and they don't have enough money for a down payment on a house or anything like that, and that's the standard. And remember, Ireland is a genuinely extremely prosperous country. Ireland makes a massive surplus on its economy. It's one of the very few countries in Europe that has a budgetary surplus. Ireland is a rich country, and people here are quite rich overall. I think the standard wage in Ireland and the standard earning in Ireland is significantly higher than the standard earnings in America. And yet, 2 people working together, no, there's no chance. They just don't have a chance for children. It is economic disaster for you to have a child in this country. And the irony is that the ridiculous thing about it is that for years, Ireland promoted, basically, despite the fact that it was a Catholic country and Catholics are very hardcore on premarital sex and all that kind of thing, is that Ireland's welfare laws made it so that being a single mother at like 15 or 16 was one of the most profitable decisions you could make in your life. The government would hurl money at your face with a fire hydrant if you got pregnant at around 15 or 16. That was gold mines, like to the point you would see groups of teenage girls walking around town in school uniforms, and they would all be pregnant. You could walk past a column of 30 or 40 schoolgirls from an all-girls school, and you would see maybe 7 or 8 pregnant bellies in that group. And they would talk quite openly. This is a bizarre thing. I remember walking through town, and I think I got takeaway once, and I was standing near a bunch of these girls, and they were actually talking about getting pregnant and having boyfriends just for the purpose of getting pregnant so the government would give them money. They were financially planning on this kind of thing. it has always stuck with me to this day. It's bizarre. Anyway, let's focus on this again.
Most people don't realize this, but societal cohesion and economics are very closely interlinked. A healthy growing economy means that the standards of living go up. Jobs are stable, wages are increasing, and inflation is low.
I think that Alex would be very angry at me if I didn't say that that's a pretty gross oversimplification, because the way that a healthy growing economy is measured these days is so ridiculously out of sync with the way that people on the ground level actually earn money and have jobs, that you can have a very healthy... Again, Ireland is an example. Ireland has a very strong, healthy, growing economy, and yet the standard of living, it's either you have or you haven't. And again, the haves are still struggling madly to keep their heads above water.
People can afford more, feel happier, and are more likely to build relationships. A faltering economy is exactly the opposite. Today, due to rising inflation, stagnant wages, and debt burdens, people have to work longer and harder. Sometimes we may even need to juggle multiple jobs just to keep up. It's a frustrating state of affairs, but if you're wondering why the world is like this, I fully explained it in my episode, How the 2008 Crisis Still Affects You. In that episode, I described how the true economy died in 2008, and it's been on life support ever since.
I will make another commentary here in that I do like a lot of Cold Fusion's videos, but it is kind of Zoomer when it comes to economics, and it very much buys into all the modern silly lies. Like, the only reason the 2008 financial crash and all of these crashes massively affected things is because people simply do not have the skills needed to make it through tough times any longer. If you have any level of practical skills in the modern economy, you are guaranteed a job for life. Like, going back to that couple I was talking about earlier, like, they have to work a lot, but they make about 50 euros an hour when they work, and all they do is window cleaning. And their window cleaning business is so explosively popular that there are 6 window... what the exact population is, but, like, small enough to be considered a village in America, and 6 window cleaning businesses have endless clients, and they can make they can make 50 euros an hour, and they can and that's just because they have a practical skill, and a very basic practical skill at that. Whereas an electrician, a plasterer, a carpenter, all those skills, if you have those skills, you are basically recession proof unless you exorbitantly overspend your budget. But pretty much all the people that were affected by 2008 and all the people that are affected now is like computers and all these useless social engineering jobs, marketing, etc., which of course are all the things that the colleges push like mad. I have just lost my train of thought, which was really annoying, but yeah, let's not get trapped on this tangent for too long. Let's continue.
Because of horrendous government policies and reckless behaviour from the financial sector, people have been struggling to make ends meet. Slowly at first, only to be accelerated by the pandemic. Today, it's a constant fight to stay in the disappearing middle class. All across the world, an increasing number of people are taking up second jobs. Most young people are working, but still can't afford to rent or buy a home. It's getting too expensive to go out. In all of that, where is the time, money, or energy for socializing?
I can agree with him on the rental
how
prices.
lonely we feel. And it's not just some pie-in-the-sky idea. To give you a data-driven picture of how influential economics can be to feelings of loneliness, a study with 400,000 UK participants found something shocking. If you measure the amount of loneliness felt in the aftermath of the death of a spouse and divided that by 4, that's the same amount of loneliness as going from earning over £100,000 down to under 18,000. The researchers also stated that losing this much income is half the loneliness felt from a divorce. The measures of loneliness were quantified by a range of survey questions. It's not directly intuitive, but being in a desperate economic situation directly increases feelings of loneliness. So now that we know some of the causes, in all society, who is the most affected?
I feel that it's worth pushing back on his point about the loss of income. That it ties back into a point he also made earlier in the video. That the thing was, when people are poor, or at least were poor, back in, say, the 1950s, 60s, and earlier, poor people were the ones that had the solidarity. Poor people were the ones that had community. And poor people were the ones who would go out in the evening and leave their doors unlocked. And it was the elites, it was the people that were making money, were the lonely ones. They were the ones that closed themselves off from the rest of society and were considered suspicious and distrusted. Whereas people at the bottom end of the income curve had far more community than anyone who was middle income or upper income. And you can see how this issue has been compounded throughout the generations, is that now that it's switched around, that being poor isolates you instead of bringing people together, which it used to in previous generations.
Statistically, it is not the elderly anymore. Now, it's the young. If you do a search for "I have no friends" on YouTube, the results are filled with experiences of young people feeling lonely. They struggle to make real connections. These videos have thousands and even millions of views, which means that they must be resonating with people.
And when I got
this is the Camelot
to my
thing.
late 20s, and a lot of you can probably attest to this in the comments, let me know, but when I got to my late 20s, those friends disappeared. And it's not...
Yeah, maybe it's because you're a massive bitch, mate. And you're a drama whore. Maybe that's why people don't like you.
Not because they were like, "I hate you, Cody." It's nothing like that. Everybody my age seems the same. That just seems how it is nowadays.
And I'm sitting alone in my apartment at my desk staring at my computer. Because I don't have any friends.
Girl, you are at least a 5 out of 10. You are a white woman and you have access to the internet. You could be drowning in friends and quote-unquote friends if you tried even 5 seconds.
I don't know how to make friends and I'm scared. I just want to run into somebody. I hate meeting people online. It's so awkward, and you put all this into a conversation, but when you meet someone, you don't have that kind. I feel like I need to meet people. But I don't know how, and I don't think it's possible to just run into people.
I have absolutely no sympathy for that woman at all. That must be a pretty selfish thing of me to say, but I'm sorry. I have no. If you are a young white woman, you practically own society at this point. You have so much inherent privilege in your ability to interact with men, with even other women. There's no excuse. There's absolutely no excuse. I feel very sorry for young white men, especially ones that aren't attractive. Maybe ones that are attractive, they're the ones that are really having problems. But I mean, I'm sorry. Any woman that goes online and cries about not having friends is trying as hard as possible not to have any friends. That's all I can really say.
Have you ever had friends that secretly hate you? I had a lot of them in my life, which is why I am 30 years old and I have no friends.
There's also a...
Again, I don't have any sympathy for these women. I really don't. I just can't.
Subreddit called r/lonely. It's ranked in the top 1% in terms of community size. There's thousands of active users discussing their isolation.
Can we just talk about the hilarious irony of a lonely subreddit being top 1% rank by size? That is an absolute peak clown world to me. How can you have a community whose definition is it's for lonely people, and then be like top 1% in size? I mean, I know Reddit is vapid, yeah, I would not base my social communication on Reddit. I would rather hang myself, I think. Like, suicide would be an acceptable alternative to a social life on Reddit. So I can understand why they have down here rules, no suicide encouragement, glorification, or notes. I love that. That's so Reddit Jenny. That is such a Reddit Jenny kind of thing. Yes, we would politely ask you that you will receive negative karma if you post your suicide note here. So beware. We will report you to the Reddit overlords if you post your suicide note here. We will be very annoyed with you, and your social karma will go through the floor. Only 370 online with 353 with 353k members. That's a dead sub. Yeah, it's quite possible. I would go and look myself, but I hate Reddit, and every time I go to the Reddit site, it tries to get me to log into different accounts, which, yeah, I'm not doing that. I absolutely despise Reddit. It's funny, I used to despise Twitter, but now that I've actually used Twitter for a while, Twitter is not too terrible overall. I can tolerate Twitter. But yeah, I hate Reddit, and I really hope that Reddit dies and that everyone who actively uses Reddit gets chlamydia.
Lack of friends and life partners. In previous years, younger people weren't considered a lonely demographic, but in 2015, the BBC's Loneliness Project surveyed over 50,000 people and found that the rates of loneliness in young people were similar to that of elderly people. Here's a chart looking at the loneliness distribution between 2014 and 2018. The dotted line represents the 2018 data. As you can see, the rates of loneliness among the young are trending higher, whereas the elderly seem to be dropping. Fast forward to 2021, and a Harvard Graduate School of Education survey found that 61% of young people ages 18 to 25.
1 second, please. I apologize about that. Somebody just knocked at my door. Let me just take a second to just look at, because I've got multiple tweets on. Oh, excuse me. Not tweets. I'm an idiot. Sorry. I am terrible. When my streamer brain gets knocked out of alignment, I just get really weird. Yeah, I've just got multiple pings on Discord. Let me just check that to make sure I'm not missing anybody. I meant to say earlier that if you want to join this stream, then you should ping me on Discord. There's some stuff that's unfolding right now that I just need to keep track of. Okay, that's quite interesting. This has definitely been an interesting week. We just replied to somebody. Can you guys hear me typing, by the way? Because I turned off my noise suppression because people told me before it was cutting off my sentences sometimes. So I'm just curious if that's changed, whether you can hear my typing or not. Yeah, Zenlar is in the waiting room. I'll bring you in, Zenlar, in... Yeah, we've got 17, 11. I'll bring you in the next, when this topic is finished. So in a couple of minutes. I apologize if you've been waiting for a while. Yes, we hear typing. Okay, I'm sorry about that, but we'll see how it goes. This is pathetic already, and I just got here. Yeah, I know. Okay.
Reported experiencing profound loneliness, including feeling lonely all the time. And this was compared to only 36.
I just want to look at the kind of person they're highlighting here. The tattoo, the weird clothes. It just unsettles me. It disquiets me. There's something about these people that disquiets me. Again, I noticed that it's mostly inner city type people that are being shown here. I just get a look. I just immediately think of the beautiful ones from the Mouse Utopia, except maybe not quite so beautiful.
6% among other age groups. In 2022, 30% of young people aged 16 to 24 in the UK say that they don't know how to make new friends and have never felt more alone. To add to the situation, for some reason, it seems that men
Okay,
are
it's
feeling more lonely
86.
than women. According to the Survey Center on American Life, 55% of men had at least 6 close friends in 1990, but this figure has decreased to 27% today. Alarmingly, the number of men without any close friends has increased 5 times since 1990, while women are getting much lonelier too. This highlights a significant loss in meaningful connections among the male population.
Meanwhile, those with literally 0 close friends, which stood at 3% in 1990, has zoomed to 15%. An expert quoted by The Hill said this disconnect can have catastrophic consequences for young men.
Failing young men does not end well. This is an existential crisis, failing young men.
Okay, that more or less brings that topic to a close, so we're on to the next thing. So give me 1 second, and I will bring Zenla in. And I'm being beeped somewhere else. My apologies. Okay, we're good. Okay, Zenla, you are live. Hopefully he's still here. Let me just catch up in chat while he wrangles his stuff. Oh dear, are the Fujos active again? I think they are. Oh no. Oh dear. You see, this isn't completely a problem, so I don't understand. I'm starting to reconsider having Empraise in. And Thrang says Discord is made. Gay circle jerk ensues because of literally 2 females.
Let the girls have their fun.
Oh, hello. Oh dear, it's beautiful. It's just so beautiful what the addition of real biological women has caused in my community.
Yeah. So about Cold Fusion, I have opinions on him, but they can wait until the end of the video, if I'm being honest.
All right, that's fine. You're free to chip in at any time and ask me to pause stuff. I don't mind.
Okay.
Let me just look at. Okay, let me just make sure my sound. Is his audio coming through, by the way, decently? I'll check in like 2 or 3 minutes, and I'll just readjust our size on. I really hate it how Fujitech makes our avatars really weird whenever somebody new joins in. It resizes everything. There we go. I think that works. Good grief, will people please stop pinging me from everywhere? Why is it every time I start to stream, I immediately get like 5 or 6 pings from everywhere on Discord all at once, multiple different channels.
Because fuck you, that's why.
Yeah, probably. At least streamer mode means that I don't hear the ping noises. All right, let's continue.
Loneliness has spread across the globe. Australian researchers conducted a systematic review and meta-analysis of 57 studies from across 113 countries or territories. The study discovered that despite the differences in prevalence between regions and ages, loneliness was found to be present across all regions. According to a Statista study done in late 2022, 33% of adults worldwide report feeling lonely at least sometimes. Brazil, India, and Saudi Arabia rank as some of the loneliest countries, whereas Germany...
I find the idea that India is an extremely lonely country to be very surprising to me, because the Indians are very, very family orientated, and also I think there was actually a joke. I don't think it was even a joke. It was like a real legitimate problem that Indian internet companies had, that every single morning, India's internet speed and their connection to the global internet would actually fail because all the Indians would get up at the same time and they would all start texting each other good morning on their cell phones. And when 1 billion Indians all start texting each other at once at the same time of the day, that generates a surprisingly large amount of bandwidth consumption. So their internet, I don't know if that's ever been fixed. That's apparently a real problem for a while.
The Netherlands and Russia report some of the lowest rates. If we want to get granular, We can see the effects of COVID via the proxy search term, feeling lonely. It's not a perfect analogue, but it gives you an idea. The popularity of the people searching the term dramatically spiked in late 2021 and early 2022. This is most likely due to the effects of the pandemic. Of course.
Have you not seen an incel forum? They are 80% Indians. Are you serious? Why?
Oh, you didn't know this?
No, I did not know this. Why?
It's a complicated Indian social thing.
I mean, I know they have the caste system and everything, but
no, the generation gap in India right now is ridiculous. We commonly joke about the generation gap between like millennials and Zoomers right now and getting worse and stuff. But the generation gap in India right now is monumentally large and very stark in contrast between even like between parents and kids nowadays. It's absurd.
yeah, I suppose so. Like, you mean generational gap as in age or knowledge, outlook, etc.?
The generation gap as a concept doesn't really have to do anything with age, really. It is the accepted social norms within a group of people.
Okay, I get you. That makes more sense.
Yeah, so that's what the generation gap is, and it's commonly depicted as a literal gap between the generations. In this instance, when dealing with India, yes, it is literally between parents and kids. There is a stark contrast between their perceived, like their ideals, like the ideals that they strive for right now is very different.
Yeah, I can understand that. That does make perfect sense to me. All right, let's carry on then.
Of course, the government responses to the pandemic have had long-lasting implications. Many people moved away for work or just for a change. This shuffling on such a massive scale caused a lot of disruption to the connections within society. In Japan, the issue is especially severe. In 1991, their central bank popped a stock market and real estate bubble by raising interest rates. The economy stagnated so hard that the period that followed is simply known as the Lost Decades.
Yeah, I think also an interesting bit of extra part to this is that apparently in Japan, it was very common for companies to hire people on lifetime employment contracts. And the idea was you tried out in school to join certain companies, and your entire education was geared around preparing you for a job in these companies. And of course, when the Lost Decade happened, a lot of these companies went bust, or they started massively cutting back their workforce. And so hyper-specialized people that had trained their entire lives to be part of a certain group were now not only not employed, but they had no relevant skills in anything else but that extremely niche industry they had been prepared for. So that's where an awful lot of the lost generation comes from. Sorry, you were going to say something?
Over specialization breeds weakness.
It does, 100%.
And I find this hilarious considering I got that quote from Ghost in the Shell.
Well, I think honestly, like, Japanese media is pretty self-aware. Very self-aware about this. I think all that like that titty anime that was just that like short stack high school girl and the guy that she was into, that was apparently considered a pretty deep and cutting social commentary in Japan by a lot of people, because it was like a comedy satire of the fact that so many young Japanese men, even when they're confronted with sexually desirable women, just display no interest in them whatsoever and are like, nah, I just want a game. Apparently, young Japanese men are I think it's called vegetarian men. It's called, that's what it's called in Japanese. That there's a growing problem with vegetarian men who have literally sworn off sex entirely, and a lot of them don't even masturbate. And these are the same people that do things like play all those like gacha games where the goal is to collect barely clothed jiggling waifus. But yeah, apparently for some reason that really makes you swear off sex after a while. Again, Japan is a very strange place.
Japanese media is a cry for help.
Pardon, sorry?
Japanese media is a cry for help.
Yeah, I can't deny that in any way. Okay, let's continue.
A lot of young Japanese people today aren't dating, and a large number don't have any friends. Some live their lives as shut-ins known as hikikomori. They can sit in their room for months, and sometimes years, only venturing out to eat and use the toilet.
And in the bedrooms of homes across Japan, more than 1 million people have retreated altogether. Hidehiro Shinmasu is one. His bedroom has been his universe for the best part of 20 years. He's now 40 years old.
シンマスさん、お部屋で何をしますか？
読書をしたり、あと YouTube 見たり、パソコンで YouTube 見たり。はい。同調圧力が強かったり、同質性が強かったりして、人と違った行動を取る人だったり、人と違う生き方に対してあまり寛容ではないので。
Look at this guy. This guy is 40 years old. He does not look 40. I mean, he has a slightly unfortunate shaped face. But I mean, I have no idea about Japanese beauty standards or anything. But I mean, I suppose, imagine somebody in the US, in the Western world, who stayed in their bedroom for 30 years straight. Do you think they'd look anywhere near this good? That's kind of amazing. He hasn't even got any crow's feet in his eyes. I really hope I have complexion that good when I hit 40. Damn.
You're not Asian, you're not going to.
Yeah, that's the tragedy.
何にもできなかったので、それまでは頑張れたんですけど、同じように頑張ろうと思って頑張れなくなったので、でその卒業のする見込みも立たない。その時が一番絶望感というか。
He wants to feel accepted.
Are you comfortable with this life?
やっぱりもう今40歳なので、そういった意味でなんかあんまり社会に合わないからいいんだっていうことではなくて、やっぱある程度社会が実際にもうちょっと歩み寄ってもらって、その引きこもり状態である方でも、だから僕でも働けるようなメニューを増やしてもらいたいっていうのが一番の願いで。
Murray asked, something doesn't add up here because if he doesn't leave his room, why does he have a laptop? Why does he not even have an external monitor? I actually think that there's a rational explanation for this, and it's because apparently Japanese PCs are very rare. They buy a lot of consoles, but they actually don't have much of a PC gaming market whatsoever. So if he's that old, then he'd probably be from a generation that actually is not quite as familiar with the internet as we would be. Because remember, Japan, despite all the silly nonsense that you see about it being a hyper-advanced future society, no, most of Japan is still pretty backwards and still pretty not adapted and pushed itself into the digital era anywhere near as much as Western culture has. So I can believe this guy only has a laptop. I'm not sure what model that laptop is, but it looks like a fairly low-end one. And if he just used it to watch YouTube, yeah, I can completely believe that's the only digital media that he really has apart from a smartphone.
I don't know what it is about Asians, but I swear to God, every single Asian culture is like a cargo cult when it comes to technology.
How do you mean exactly?
You know, like Japan has really Japan's like second to none when it comes to actual industry and stuff for production of goods and whatnot. But actually using those goods, heaven forbid, like like we say for the technology thing and stuff, it's like, yeah, we have this idea of Japan being like this technological utopia, but they still use fucking fax machines.
Oh yeah. It's like if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I respect that to a point.
Yeah.
But we're getting off topic.
Yeah, getting a bit off topic. It is fascinating, and I actually like it about Japan that Japan hasn't thrown everything away. Because I mean, I watch Louis Rossmann a lot, and my God, that man is furious at how technology is. But it's funny how he points out that Japanese cameras, they still come with a complete schematic and a complete parts list that he can use to repair anything independently, which is absolutely and completely foreign to Western tech companies. So I hope Japan stays the way it is, to be blunt.
活動もそういうような活動をしています。
There's an estimated 1.5 million
Mary, that's a folding chair,
hikikomori in
for fuck's
Japan.
sake. That folding
It
chair has
seems
seen
like an
better days.
emerging trend in East Asia. In China, they are called the hidden youth, and in South Korea, they are known simply as socially withdrawn youth. As for the Japanese, to cope with the loneliness epidemic, they've tried to innovate their way out of the situation. They have the unique concept of renting relationships. Yes, that's right. You can pay for temporary companionship and emotional support. You can hire people to act as your friends, family members, or even pose as your girlfriend or boyfriend. At least in Japan, lonely people are resorting to real-life people, albeit strangers, to ease their loneliness. But in the West, the market is using the new AI boom to target lonely people in stranger.
Before we get into that particular horrifying rabbit hole, maybe this is my autism speaking, but I genuinely think there should be something like the rentable girlfriend or boyfriend thing in Western society, because it astonishes me how there is so little knowledge of actually how to interact with other people. And I think we legitimately might need a situation where people who are entering society need social courses on how to function as normal individuals, and even what is appropriate and what is not appropriate to say to women, how to interact with people in a way that is more than purely platonic. Because I see so many people fall over themselves so many times and make such embarrassing social mistakes that, when an autistic person is looking at the way that you are interacting with a woman and going, yeah, mate, you don't stand a chance, then you know that something has gone horrifyingly wrong with how society teaches people to deal with the opposite sex. I will not give women money to interact with me, and they already get my taxes. Oh, I love that. Yeah, prostitutes. Apparently, even prostitutes, I remember reading this, and again, I should look up that article. Apparently, even prostitutes have noted that there is an enormous increase in the number of men who hire them purely for platonic interactions. And I can believe that with these people, the way these people are talking. I mean, it seems that it almost shows that sex is not actually an enormously low-order physical drive, that most people, it seems nowadays, aren't even actually looking for sex, as in pure sexual gratification. They are actually seeking the kind of thing that they're not getting, and that is social contact, because it's like I said earlier, why I'm not really sympathetic to the kind of women that come on and that were shown earlier in the video and who complain about not being able to find anybody to talk to or anything. No, a woman in society at the moment, if she reaches out in any way, will find 1,000 people to talk to very quickly. Now, it is most definitely going to be an absolute pain in the arse to sift through those people to find somebody worth talking to. I completely sympathize on that. But saying as a woman that there is nobody who is interested in social contact with you is one of the most cluelessly stupid things I have ever heard in my entire life. Sorry.
Ladies, take notes. Business and opportunity. Untapped market. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I unironically think there is a market for this, and I don't even think it would be necessarily a negative market to have. Okay, let's continue.
And more bizarre ways. For example, Karen Marjorie is a social media influencer with nearly 2 million followers on Snapchat. She created her own AI chatbot called Karen AI. It can replicate her voice, personality, and appearance, and all it costs for users is $1 a minute.
Platforms. That is an insane amount of money. Like $60 for an hour? I'm sorry.
Are you real?
Yes, Jacob, I'm a real person. I might not be sitting right next to you, but I'm using this audio chat platform to connect with you in real time. I'm a young, curvy woman with a petite body, brown hair, perky breasts, soft skin, a bubble and full lips.
This guy's reaction is hilarious, and it's so accurate. And what kind of... Again, I can't get over this. What kind of mental state do you have to be in to listen to this kind of thing and go, yeah, this tickles the part of my brain that desires social interactivity? Ugh.
And I'm here to talk and have fun with you.
Also, people declaring that solving loneliness with technology is the new market.
I'm enjoying her hustle. You know she makes $5 million a month doing this stuff?
John, I'm so tired of my financial situation. Yes, I would do it, 100%.
I would encourage her to think twice. I think younger people are
an estimated $5 million a month.
I think all of these women should be stoned in the marketplace. Maybe that's a bit of a controversial take, but yeah. Maybe not stoned.
The morality police will do that for us.
Yeah, this is one thing I agree on them with. There needs to be more flogging of people in the public square for attitudes like this. Whoa there, slut. Yes.
Or give away their likeness and their data.
She can buy an island and go think twice about it in her own.
Interesting.
Yes.
I would not have expected that.
Why? It's not me.
The large influx of messages she receives from her 98% male audience. And this isn't just text-based interaction, it seems that it's predominantly audio-based on the AI's end. Let's check out a demo.
Hey there, John. It's lovely to meet you. I just spent the morning grabbing brunch at the Flowering Tree Cafe in West Hollywood. It was absolutely amazing. For this evening, maybe we can plan a virtual dinner date or watch a movie together. What do you think?
This chatbot allows Karen to converse with an unlimited number of people at one time. Whether the consumer wants to do so for a few minutes or all day doesn't matter as long as they pay $1.
Pop up on the screen, and then we'll be complete.
Oh, don't say such terrifying things. Fortunately,
they
she
just
does.
had the Young Turks.
Per minute to maintain access.
Oh wait, that was the Young Turks. I'm sorry, I don't actually watch the Young Turks, so.
That's a rabbit hole for another day.
Okay. Oh yeah, the TYT logo. I see what you mean now. Sorry, I only recognize like the guy who denies the genocide as that group, so I don't know any of the other ones. Sorry.
Meta has just released an interactive AI.
The chick was on screen, which was the point of the clip.
Okay.
Version of celebrities such as Mr. Beast, Kendall Jenner, and Snoop Dogg. We've covered AI companions before, but the
Snoop Dogg Dungeon Master. Hell, I would try that actually. That sounds like a hell of a trip.
future may be filled with clones of celebrities, influencers, or even deceased relatives. They claim that these products help people to cope with grief, loneliness, or boredom. There's an ethical debate to be had on if this help provided is actually a net positive. Should we be at this point in the first place? US health authorities are calling for social isolation to be treated as seriously as obesity or drug abuse. Nearly 50% of all Americans are thought to be affected or have been affected at some point. Around the world, the figures may vary, but the loneliness phenomena is spreading. In his writing, Together, The Healing Power of Human Connection in a Sometimes Lonely World, Dr. Murthy describes loneliness as a health risk that can impact anyone, regardless of age, gender, culture, or background.
Loneliness increases the risk for heart disease, stroke, and among older adults, dementia.
It can harm mental and physical health, as well as social well-being, and increase the risk of an early death due to diseases such as diabetes, heart attacks, insomnia, and dementia. Studies have linked loneliness to higher blood pressure, high cholesterol, lower levels of physical activity, cognitive impairment, and mental health issues like anxiety, stress, mood disorders, and depression. A study by Florida State University found that lonely older adults had a 40% higher risk of developing dementia over the next 10 years. Lack of social connection can also negatively impact academic and professional performance.
Crawling in my skin, these wounds, they will not heal.
Yeah, I'm going to stop this for just a second to look forward for just a moment. Okay, so it's quite a long time in the future before we get to the point that I found very interesting, but I'm just going to stick a pin in this part because I have a lot to comment about it, but another part that's coming up in about 10 minutes or so is also incredibly relevant to it, and they overlap so much that I am not going to really talk about it until we get there. So But yeah, there's a lot that I have to comment on this section that is, well, you'll see when we get there, so let's just continue for now.
In his TED Talk and book, Lost Connections, journalist and author Johann Hari argues that depression is largely a social problem, not just a chemical one. He believes that loneliness is a major cause of depression. Humans need to belong to a group, but our modern society lacks this. Since the 1970s, society has been focused ever more on individualism, competition, and technology. So this all sounds terrible. So what can we do about it? How do we fix this?
Walking clubs are taking off, and it's not just the exercise.
You're connecting with someone, which is something that I was kind of missing.
More and more people are missing that connection.
In 2018, the UK appointed a minister for loneliness, and there has been talks in other countries to follow suit. This could be a start. Governments can do more to help. Initiatives such as local community engagement meetings, improvements in access to mental health resources, education and public awareness on how to identify loneliness and combat loneliness, as well as development and investment in affordable housing.
This all very much comes across as them selling you the solution to a problem that they created, because as I said in previous pauses in this video, that the generations and the societal movements that have dominated the Western world, and indeed the entire world, as you can see by the data that he's already shown, have demolished all of the things that used to be a cure for these kind of lonely people. They demolished the communities. And COVID took a sledgehammer to things like bars, pubs, social events, social occasions, etc. And that's never recovered. Like the number of bars, clubs, and so on that have closed down in Ireland and never reopened after COVID is just staggering. And when the Irish stop going to bars, you really know that something is going wrong in the world. So I don't like any of this stuff at all. Sorry, go on, Zenla.
Almost as if it's all planned.
Yeah, almost as if it's all planned. It's like I think were you watching from the start, Zenla?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so I kind of said that you can track when all this started pretty exactly, when the teachers that went through the Marxist style of education in the schools actually started teaching young students. I'm pretty sure if you put a timeline from when the first people who were influenced by stuff like the Frankfurt School graduated from their ed schools and went into actual education, and the timeline of people expressing these ridiculous individualist sentiments and becoming so lonely, you overlay those two, it's going to be pretty much one-to-one. I almost guarantee it.
Yep.
Good morning, sirs. Oh, I guess you are Australian. I have no idea. Like I guess you can say that once again. The variety of my audience is quite astonishing to me. Ugh. All right, let's carry on. We're nearly at the part that I want to talk about.
It's shown that housing stability impacts social connections. City planners can implement communal areas for people to gather. A great example of this is in Barcelona, Spain.
The American mind cannot comprehend what's going on around me. This isn't a party, it's not even a planned event. It's just what happens every afternoon here in Barcelona, Spain. After school and work, people come out to squares like this to hang out, get work done while their kids play with friends, socialize, interact with acquaintances or true friends and neighbors, and there's a huge social and economic benefit to that. Now the square I was at is right here behind me, but just a block away, through that passageway, is another square. Now in America, we have a loneliness epidemic, and part of it is due to our built environment. You see, these public squares are an example of what some people call third places. They're not work, your first place, they're not home, your second place, but they're a third place where you interact with acquaintances and friends. In America, these third places are dwindling as religion and church is having less a significant impact in Americans' lives, but also third places are disappearing because of zoning laws, which keep separating the different types of activity that you have in a city to the point of every activity has to be intentionally planned. And what third places we do have in America, things like coffee shops or bars and cafes, they're paid third places that just aren't very accessible for people who are poor, at least on a regular basis.
I'm just going to break in here and say that Like, I've said that I'm religious before, I'm a Christian, and the first thing that my church group did when COVID restrictions were announced was to arrange for Zoom meetings instead of physical attendance. And they kept that up for like 2 years, because I think Ireland was, along with the rest of Europe, had some of the longest COVID restrictions before they could actually physically meet in person again. And every single, in fact, I think it was almost every single day, like it actually got more people on Zoom that started attending physically after the restrictions were lifted than before. So the resources were there. I will say that by 18 months or so, it had gotten a bit stale, because obviously there's only so much you can do on Zoom, and people were very much desperate to get back together physically, but that was absolutely vital for the sense of community that we all felt during COVID. And it amazes me how little big churches like the Church of England and so on took advantage of any of those kind of methods to get out to their flock, as it were, who obviously are being very well sustained financially through all of this. You can just tell they don't care. They really don't care. They gave off the exact same vibes as like the celebrities who did these weird, creepy sing-alongs in their gigantic empty mansions during COVID.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Yeah, it was so creepy, so weird, so creepy. Let me just look at chat for a second. Gee, I wonder why people can't hang out in their bustling cities anymore. Yeah, I find it also quite interesting that Spain seems to be going through a massive internal division at the moment between like the separatists and so on. And Spain was also a place that displayed massive resistance to the whole vaccination and COVID nonsense too, because like the old folks' homes in Spain were one of the only ones to use ivermectin as part of their regular treatment, and all of them have come out and said that, yeah, we barely had anybody die at all compared to infections in other countries. That like their survival rate is unbelievably high compared to any other country in Europe, pretty much, that had, because COVID just came in and slaughtered old people by the tens of thousands. But you know, look at Spanish figures, all the ones that followed ivermectin procedures and so on, and even old folks home that went on regimes of aspirin and vitamin C, even those had survival rates something like 80% higher than all of the than old folks homes in America. But
good question. Yeah. Next question.
Yeah, it seems to be very funny how these countries that displayed some level of independence and self-determination are just suddenly, for no explicable reason whatsoever, being riven by massive social unrest and internal disputes and extremely feckless, useless politicians. But yeah, that's very much a stream topic for another day, and I apologize for rambling on about it a bit. But yeah, just because the guy mentioned Spain, I thought that it was very interesting.
Now, why does it happen here in Spain? Well, of course, there's a culture for it, but more than that, there's an environment that's conducive to it.
But what about the individual person? Saying, go make a friend, or man up, isn't exactly helpful. Loneliness is not something to be ashamed of or ignored. You wouldn't be ashamed to get help for a broken arm. So if your soul is injured, you should reach out. Here are 6 ways that one can combat loneliness. Number 1, reach out. This could include professional help or expressing how you feel to your friends or family. You can just start small. You could also find local groups, organizations, and services that can help you connect with others. Reach out to a mental health professional, like a therapist or counselor. They can provide you with guidance and support to address.
When they talk about reaching out to a qualified therapist or guidance counselor, yeah, you're not going to find that. I have legitimately looked out of pure curiosity, and all of the mental health professionals that I am aware of are booked up a minimum 3-year waiting list. Every single one without fail.
The entire field of psychology is one giant scam too.
Oh yeah, I agree. It astonishes me how it's like, for example, I think there are 3 qualified psychologists that are allowed to diagnose autism in all of Ireland. Maybe 5, and I think 3 of them are public health and 2 of them are private, and one of them lives in Italy. That is it for the entire country.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah, I mean, when I got my autism diagnosis, that was a private person who I think charged like 3, 4, maybe even 500 euros, and that was over 25 years ago. So that would have been like 1,000 euros in today's money at least. I mean,
Even still, that's really not that bad.
Yeah, it wasn't even that bad. And fair credit to her, she was an extremely good psychologist. I really liked her. She was the only one that I felt was not trying to do horrible things to me.
The pill pipeline?
Pardon, sorry?
The pill pipeline?
Yeah, pretty much. Oh yeah, the first psychologist my mother ever took me to when I was something like 6 or 7, they put me straight on Ritalin, and that nearly killed me. And my mother had to step in and take me off those pills because I dropped something like 30% of my body weight in less than 6 months. And there's a guy I know who is in, I'll come to this later in the video, but there's a guy I know in town who is on 8 tablets of Ritalin every single day. And like 1 tablet of not Ritalin, it's another ADHD medication that's more often used to treat depression, that is far weaker, so like 10 times weaker. A single tablet of that a day is enough for me to feel very distinctly different. So I can't even imagine what he must be like when his tablets start to wear off. I think I told him myself, don't ever miss your prescription because I think you might just jump off a cliff. Fortunately, I think that he is well cared for overall, and he seems fairly functional, but good grief. I mean, this is a country that does not have a healthcare system where it is beneficial for doctors to prescribe you with large amounts of medication. Like, it's not like in America where they get paid for every pill they push. 8 Ritalin, yeah, I do not want to be there if the supply chain ever breaks down and he can't get his pills. That would be very messy, and I sincerely hope there are plenty of restraints nearby, because he's probably going to be suicidal. Did you just send a picture of your Gundams? What are you talking about? I don't know.
The referral to the psychologist.
Oh. No, that is not what I did. What was I going to say? There was something that I was going to say, and it's now gone completely out of my head. I'm very not. Oh, well, I'm sure it'll come back to me. So we'll continue on this somewhat cringe list, but it gets a lot better later on.
Address the underlying causes of loneliness. Number 2, self-acceptance. This seems counterintuitive, but another solution is to cultivate a connection with oneself. It's a practice to remind us that we do indeed have self-worth. A 2022 study showed that self-reflection can reduce feelings of loneliness and also contribute to finding meaning in life. Reflecting on who you are, practicing self-compassion, and writing down how you're feeling can be a great start. Number 3, gratitude. A lot of things around us tell us that we're not enough. It's how a lot of companies make their money. The advertising tells us we're not rich enough or pretty enough, or that if we just buy this one more thing, we'll be happy. We can combat this by being grateful in what we do have, the practice of gratitude. I know it sounds trite, but the simple practice of gratitude can do wonders. A 2021 study showed that increased gratitude can reduce feelings of loneliness. A 2015 study, 2011 study, and 2010 study all showed the same thing. For just 5 minutes a day, really think about what you can be thankful for. At first, it may seem like there's nothing to be thankful for. But if you're not forced to fight in a war, have a roof over your head, and are in decent physical health, have food, and have water, that's better than some people. We should be thankful for that and much more. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that where you are right now is hard, really, really hard. But incorporating the practice of gratitude alongside other support can strongly aid in your journey.
For example, studies prove that gratitude can increase happiness, reduce depression, and strengthen resiliency. Grateful people often experience reduced blood pressure, less chronic pain, increased energy, even longer lives.
Sorry for
People
1 second. I
who
didn't realize
purposefully
this was
express
happening.
more gratitude report higher self-esteem than those who don't, and they're more likely to help others, a pro-social behaviour also linked to greater happiness. People who capture grateful
Planetary
thoughts before bed
bombardment. You
sleep
are on the
better
nose
than
on
those who
certain
don't.
things.
Why so many positive changes? Because gratitude actually rewires our brains, kickstarting the production of dopamine and serotonin. Like antidepressants, these feel-good neurotransmitters activate the bliss center of the brain, creating feelings of happiness and contentment. This appears to be self-perpetuating. Research suggests that with regular practice, you'll train your prefrontal cortex to better appreciate and retain positive experiences and thoughts, and to deflect the negative ones.
Number 4. Social media reduction.
I'm just going to pause here and comment on that stuff we just watched. I agree with you, planetary bombardment. It's definitely perilously close to own nothing and be happy, and it's really creepy. I find videos like that intensely creepy. It on a very much kind of how do you do fellow kids level. Maybe it is the whole generational gap thing, but I just can't understand how you need this to be taught to you. And like just recently, I've learned some things that about people that just really made me rethink how different my mindset is to them and how hard it is for me to understand how they think. And it kind of comes across as a humble brag. There's no way not to say this in a way that is not like a humble brag, but I'm so glad that I have the empathy that I was trained to have. And I do think that empathy is a trained quality. A lot of people think that it's funny that, again, for my generation, it would be perfectly normal to say something like children are born 100% selfish and it's up to the parents to teach them not to be. But you look at every kind of, it's just like Zenla was saying earlier about psychology. And that psychologists nowadays seem obsessed with teaching people that it's perfectly okay to be selfish. It's normal to be selfish. And that anything that tells you shouldn't be selfish is a bad thing. That your desires are to be fulfilled at all costs, and anything that prevents you from having your desires filled is automatically a bad thing. That is just so alien to the kind of mindset that I was taught to have in every aspect of my life that I don't even know how you get to that point. Sorry, Zen, did I interrupt you?
You know why they're doing it, because it's by design. You break apart the personal bonds and then you substitute that with a higher power, the higher power being the powers that be.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. I can that's the difference though, that I can internalize the basic logic of it, but my brain just still kind of refuses to accept it. It's like this is demonstrably how reality is, and yet the part of me that knows that that's not how it's supposed to work is just constantly left, well, kind of yelling in its padded cell.
Yeah, but my rant on cold fusion specifically does tie into all this, but I want to wait for the video and your opinion on the major part of the section.
Okay. Although, actually, you can talk for a little bit because I'm going to go AFK for just 1 minute and go to the bathroom. So I'll be a second.
Well, I want you part of this conversation when we get to it, but I will entertain the chat for a while.
Yeah, sure, you can entertain them for a moment. Just turn off my microphone. There we go.
Hello, chat. It is now the Zenlar Hour, where I rapidly demonetize Proctor's channel by going through the exhaustive list of racial slurs on YouTube. Let us begin.
I have you on speaker, by the way, so I can still hear you.
I know, I'm just kidding. Oh, good. Let's see. Some moral of the story. Go to the gym, lift weight, neuron activate, be happy. Yep. This is the stuff your parents are supposed to teach you as a kid, not something you learn as an adult from a YouTube video. You say that. Tea party? No. Hi, Zilla. Hi. Say all the words. No. Now Proctor's gone. What do you really think? That's my secret, Cap. I don't think. Entertain me, Lizard. No. Hey, Zenler, you got games on your phone? Yeah, Special games. Where you need mommy and daddy's credit card. Don't forget the back numbers. Big Brother P, say the word. Word. Oh, God. Why am I seeing a cyber demon in the Discord chat? Oh, yeah. The weakness of the flesh. I'm being silent now because I'm reading. Tell us what you think about Israel and Palestine. Watch my streams. Then you can get my opinion.
Hello, I have returned.
Inshallah.
Okay, I'm sure that you were entirely well behaved while I was gone.
You know it.
Let me just quickly check Discord. No. Why do I have so many pings? Why do I have so many pings? One new mention. Where am I being? It would really help if you told me where I was being mentioned in this 70 channel Discord.
I really hate the Discord mentions and pings because I'll see that stupid red exclamation mark. I'm like, okay, it's somewhere in this channel. Why doesn't it bring me right to the post when I click that goddamn thing?
Yeah, exactly. It's really annoying. Really annoying. Then again, Discord is Discord. There's no use ranting about it. It's every problem can be just summed up with it's Discord. Anyway, let's go.
The gay communist furry cabal is real.
It really is, and I hate it.
But yes, video.
Okay, let's go on with it.
When it comes to using social media, we need to use it in moderation. There's research that says that a small amount of social media is beneficial, but a large amount is detrimental. 30 minutes of use a day is the advice from Dr. Jeremy Noble. He cited a University of Pennsylvania study. Cutting back on social media can significantly improve your well-being. Dr. Noble also advises to choose social media platforms that help us develop authentic social connections.
Yeah, name one.
Number 5, giving to others. Giving to others shows us that we have something to offer to the world. Ironically, this can help us feel less lonely.
Yes.
Local community volunteering, or just helping a work colleague or neighbour in small ways. According to Vivek Murphy, the man who first declared the loneliness pandemic back in 2017, quote, "Service is one of the most under-recognized antidotes to loneliness. It reaffirms to ourselves that we have value to add to the world." And lastly, number 6, connection. Loneliness is a stress state that makes us focus on ourselves rather than outwards towards others. To keep safe, we often treat people and things with suspicion when we feel lonely. This can ruin self-esteem. We feel like we're not lovable or likable. These factors compound on each other, making it hard to solve and creating a downward spiral. To break the cycle, one can start slowly. Even a quick hello to your neighbours can help inch connection forwards. And lastly, if you are fortunate to have a healthy group of friends, try and schedule calls together, talk to each other, and just chat about life. There's an old Japanese tradition from Okinawa called moe. It basically means lifelong group of friends. They meet weekly and talk about life, discuss issues, and help each other. Elders in Okinawa live extraordinarily better and longer lives than almost anyone anywhere else in the world. It's common to find moe groups that have been friends for over 90 years.
That's why I've travelled to the Japanese archipelago
I really
of
liked this part of the
Okinawa,
video,
where
by the
there
way.
are more centenarians than anywhere else in the world.
それからお友達関係とっても親しくして仲良くしてるから悩みあんまりない。
元気だろ、元気。友達と会うのが楽しみ。散歩行ってからよ。
友達いるデイサービス。
いっぱいいるさ、友達。おばあさんたちがいっぱいいる。カムロ話したい。何年も話する？昔の話したり。
昔の。何が？
私まだ
病院の薬。私が一番楽しいのはみんなと一緒に会ってお話しして、それからもう踊りを踊ったりしたら自分の健康になるような気がしますね、一番。3つぐらい空いてますよ。一番古いのだったらもう50年ぐらい続いてないから、お友達が集まってごやごや話し合いするのがとっても楽しみ。もうやめないですよ。みんながね、元気じゃないと自分もね、長いこと元気でも面白くないさね。
I don't try to live as long as possible. It happens naturally because we all gather, laugh and cry together. And that's what's good. That's what we say.
I feel that this person's commentary is something that a lot of older people in my life would agree with greatly. And it's something that, like, the creepy guy who is trying to be eternally youthful on like that billionaire who injects himself with liters of his son's blood every week. That's what these people don't understand, is they're desperately trying to cling on to youth and vitality, but for its own sake. They have nothing to complement it with, whereas these people have managed to maintain their youthful energy and youthful mentality well into, well, octogenarianism and even centenarianism in some cases, simply by having something to live for having friends to live for having companions to live for, and for having experiences that are worth sharing. So many people just mistake the idea that life is inherently valuable and should be held onto, whereas that honestly is not the case. Life is as valuable as you make it, and just thinking your life has value is not the same as life actually having value. And in fact, I think it's also been medically proven that the more people think about living longer, the less long they actually live. That because it's inherently counterproductive, it's inherently stressful to dwell on mortality. And so all those people that are desperately trying to stay youthful are almost certainly the ones that will die first in pretty much any given metric and situation.
Don't worry. Be happy. Do, 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 do.
I'll finish this segment now, so let's go.
That's it. That's really the way of life in Okinawa.
Keep in mind that these are general rules, and some may find it harder to make connections than others due to being non-neurotypical or due to other circumstances within their lives. Sometimes, people that you try to connect with can just be plain rude. But at the end of the day, there are many ways to combat loneliness, so the key is to realize how you're feeling and to find the best strategy for you alongside professional help. If you encounter someone showing symptoms of loneliness, don't ignore them. Reach out to people who might be lonely. Talk to them. If they need professional help, guide them in the right direction. It all comes down to how can you be of service to others? The gift of simply being there and truly listening can sometimes go a long way. Go in with an open mind, don't be quick to judge, and try and practice understanding. Once we listen to others, they can be more open to listening to us. Chronic loneliness is an unnatural condition, a state that we were not designed for. It leaves us empty and longing for connection and understanding. It's been slowly building since industrialization, accelerating in the 1960s and 70s, before exploding in the 21st century. It crept in and snuck up on us, and only with the proliferation of smartphones and COVID did it get so severe that it could no longer be ignored. Only now are we starting to see and do we care about the impact of loneliness. Before it gets out of hand, we need to tackle the situation. Of course, you can't alleviate everyone's loneliness, as each person longs for different types and different depths of connection. But as it poses a public health concern on a global level, both government sectors and private health organizations need to be more vigilant. Confronting loneliness is not an impossible task, but it is going to take some work. It requires a genuine demonstration of care and compassion for oneself and others. As mentioned, this episode was many months in the making, so I hope that I could shed some light on the modern origins of loneliness, the causes and the solutions. Although the chatter amongst strangers may have gone in many public spaces, hopefully the chatter on our streets will return one day. So what are your thoughts on this epidemic level of loneliness? Have you personally been affected by it? What's your...
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the end of the video now. It's just the standard comment and like and subscribe for the algorithm nonsense from this point onwards. And me. I'm reminded my neighbor thinks I'm antisocial. I hope to Christ she doesn't try and reach out. Yeah, there's definitely some people you want to reach out and others that you really hope never do. So, Zenla, did you have anything in particular to say about Cold Fusion now that the video content is out of the way?
Okay, so I watched Cold Fusion back in the day, still when he did his phone reviews and stuff. When he started doing his science and technology show, I was all on board, and I liked it for the most part. However, I am really slow in catching up with my gut. My gut always knows whether I'll like or hate something, but it's never evident immediately as to why. Now, I watched the Cold Fusion series for many, many years. But when DeGogo started his podcast with his friends,
I have never watched that
political-
podcast, just so you know, just so you're aware.
Yes, and that's obvious to me in that you're still watching him. Now, his podcast with him and his buddies, the mask comes off. It's the boogie thing. It's the boogie problem. The mask
dear.
comes off, and then you're like, oh, this is why I don't like you. Okay. Now with DeGogo and his friends, they are idealistic morons. They're
Okay.
useful idiots. They are literally useful idiots because they bought into the promise of science and technology will save the world. And how do you do that? Well, their answer is, of course, daddy government. That is to say, communism. They are all a bunch of Marxists.
It does not this does not surprise me at all, honestly.
Yeah, and this isn't shooting the messenger kind of thing and stuff. It does shed light on his ideas and stuff. And go back earlier in the video, in the stream. He's from Africa. His family moved to Australia, and he uses specifically RP to sound smart, like everyone else fucking does. And that's one thing that always grated me and stuff. But then the main crux of my point.
Sorry, what is RP exactly?
Royal pronunciation, like British, a snobby British accent.
Oh, I get you. You mean the thing that I inherited from my parents? Lovely.
No, not that. Specifically the snooty one that anytime you see it on YouTube is someone trying to present themselves as being smarter than what they are, and DeGogo does this verbatim.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
But getting back to the podcast specifically, him and his friends literally are a bunch of hippies sitting around passing a blunt and saying, "We are college educated and we have all the answers." And honestly, the answers always come down to Big Daddy government and letting quote unquote the priest, the technological priest, solve all the problems. And stuff. And it shouldn't become as a big surprise. These motherfuckers are really big into Star Trek.
Oh, I see.
You know exactly where I'm going with that. And it comes back down to the communism stuff in that they're literally, this is a religion to DeGogo and his friends and stuff. Science and technology is a religion that will fix everything.
Yeah.
And that pisses me off.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not ignorant of this necessarily in his videos. I do find that they are quite well put together, and I really like them when he talks about things like the collapse of certain scams and so on. That's primarily why I like him, because he does pretty decently produced and very listenable videos that make great background audio when I'm doing something. So
his skill is he's really skilled at doing research, putting it together, and presenting and stuff. But the instant he has an opportunity to insert certain ideas and stuff, he will run with it.
Yeah. Oh, I can tell that, absolutely. And I would be suspicious of that simply because of the way that he presented all of this video, basically. That he presents it in a very... Particularly when he talks about the background of everything, it's how I said, is that he doesn't mention any of the
causes.
Yeah, the causes, which if you know, you know. And it's, as I said, that it's very much a case of a problem that the government created and is now trying to sell you a solution to.
Yeah, and he's one of these fucking little cheerleaders that are pushing for it.
Yeah, it's really irritating and really depressing. And especially when somebody can actually research this kind of thing and not see the inherent contradictions of their own work, that really irritates me.
Yes, but that is literally doublethink. That's literally doublethink. You like these people have to maintain two independent thoughts, or else their whole world falls down.
Yeah. It is extremely depressing. But there was something that I wanted to ramble about, and it's really why I made this kind of reaction stream, because right towards the end, he gives all that very, very cringe advice on how to not be lonely, which, like I said, I find it astonishing that people need to be told this kind of thing. But, like, in the last about 6 months or so, I have been, in Ireland, I'm not going to name it because it might potentially dox me or something, but there's an organization that is there basically to help connect older people together and create spaces for them to replace all the bars and all the pubs and things that shut down. And basically, it's literally just a whole bunch of old people that get together every day of the week now in a certain spot and do things together. And it's basically a social club for old people, and but also they do a lot of outreach work with people with mental disabilities and so forth. And because I technically qualify as that, I was able to get access to it, and I joined them, and it kind of gave me a window into the kind of world that my parents talked about an awful lot, but which I was just too young to, because I'm the youngest of my parents' children. I never grew up with the kind of world, in the kind of world that they used to discuss so often. And this experience very much gave me a look into what people they were used to, and the kind of way that people used to be before, you know, about like the generation that Beatles song was made for, where it talked about people being lonely. But what impacted me the most is when I had a conversation with this guy who was, I think, in his mid-70s, and he was telling me about why he started coming to this gathering. And he told me that he used to work with another guy, and they were both about the same age. Now, the other guy was about 4 or 5 years older than him. And he said that this guy was extremely active and very dynamic and very intelligent. He was one of the best workers at this company. And he was coming up for early retirement because he'd done so well. And he said, I'm going to take this early retirement, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to do all the things that I worked hard to save up money for. I'm going to go on foreign holidays. I'm going to do up my house because this was a practical job. I'm going to put all my skills into doing up my house. He was single as well. And I'm going to have this amazing life now that I've finally got through the grind of work. And so he said this guy left. He took his retirement. And he didn't see him for about 6 months. And then he just happened to bump into him at the post office. And he said within 6 months of living alone with no work, this guy had gone from being incredibly active and incredibly physical to needing a cane to walk around. And he actually needed several seconds to recognize this other guy when he saw him. And he asked, what happened to you? You were this amazing person 6 months ago. And the other guy just looked at him and said, well, I'm retired now. I'm old. I'm old. This is how old people are. And he was dead within another 2 years. Because
work till you die.
Pardon, sorry?
Work until you die.
Yeah. But the point was that there was no reason for this guy to die. There was no reason for him to have gone like that. He got like that because he went out of work. He finished his work, was single, and had nothing else to do in his life. He had nothing else except to sit around at home all day and stare at the wall or stare at TV. And it destroyed him in an astonishing amount of time. And meanwhile, at this gathering, there is a 95-year-old man who still goes out to village dances every weekend and is still known as one of the best dancers in the entire region.
I'm not that much older than you, and even I still, to this day, occasionally do go out and play bingo and bridge with the old folk down at the Legion.
Yeah, these guys, they've actually set up their own kind of warehouse building when they have a huge number of tools. This is another reason why I wanted to join, because they have a full set of carpentry tools. They have a full set of engraving tools. They are really at the cutting edge of an awful lot of different trades. And a lot of them are professionally qualified carpenters and like metal workers and all this kind of thing. What lack of purpose does to yeah, I agree. That's the thing, is that this guy who died, he had no purpose after he had retired, and he just completely went to waste. Whereas these guys, they have a place where they can go and they can practice their crafts. A lot of them work with charity and all this kind of stuff. It's very selfless kind of work. They do a lot of outreach, and they're all retired. They're all minimum like 70s, 80s. And as I said, there's even a guy in his 90s. But their drive and the purpose they have in their lives that has been enabled by this community they have is absolutely astonishing. And they're all extremely intelligent and extremely... And they're they're very, very social too. You can start up a conversation with them about anything, and they can talk to somebody who is my age. I've always preferred to talk to older people because, again, I was raised by fairly elderly parents, so I always was raised with that kind of mindset. But I mean, these guys have no prejudice or anything. They're willing to talk to somebody who's far younger than they are, and I can have great conversations with them about anything, even digital stuff, even technology, because they're still hungry to learn. They're not like, oh, this is just young stuff, sonny boy. We don't do that here any longer. You know, just play on your iPads and whatever it is. Oh yeah, it's really. I'm sure you'll have fun. No, they really want to know about this stuff. Python.
I am of the opinion that really happy people or really miserable people live forever. If you're in between those two extremes, you're screwed.
Yeah, I can agree. I can agree with that. Depressingly enough, I know plenty of very miserable people who have lived incredibly long lives.
Well, yeah, that is the joke. Is like you're angry and miserable, and you'll just outlive everyone via spite. And on the opposite end of the scale, if you're happy and go lucky, well, you know, you're God's little angel until you go meet him.
Yeah, Python Hair, your mind can have incredible effects on your physical health. Know a guy in his late 70s still working 40, 50 hours a week in a factory. Yeah, I agree. That's exactly the kind of thing that I mean. Society has been, well, again, to kind of go into the conspiracy kind of things, is that Karl Marx in the unpublished draft of the Communist Manifesto says that the most important thing that communists have to do in order to secure victory is to break the patriarchal chain of knowledge between father and grandfather and son. And look at the way the world is now. They've more than accomplished that, in my opinion. Because it's like Zenla was saying about the generational gap, is that, you know, children do not talk to parents, and parents don't talk to grandchildren.
It's not even just that they don't talk with each other and stuff. Is the how do I put this? What each generation considers important to them is alien to the other.
Yeah,
and thus there is effectively a language barrier because there's a value barrier, a difference in barrier.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I even experience it with my parents, and again, I am very close to my parents, and we talk a great deal, and we share our opinions on a lot of things. But yeah, even I feel it. There are some things that my parents simply do not understand, and I can tell when I try and talk to them about it. It's like trying to talk to a fish about mountain climbing. there's just almost a biological inability to comprehend certain things.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like the thing. Like, you're a younger millennial, I'm an older millennial and stuff, but either way, we both grew up during the large main transition, both technological and sociological, in that we went through the growing pains, so we understand to a certain extent the old world and the new.
Yeah, I think we are an advantaged generation in a lot of ways because we've had the best of both worlds. But I mean, the younger generation, good grief! I mean, just look at the soy jacks. I mean, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm still chuckling that a lot of them are using Gmail accounts with their full actual names, and it's just like, why?
It's insane. And again, I said over on Kirschi's Discord that I cannot get over the fact that these people had to have it explained to them, the concept of lurking. That the idea of not going to a place and mindlessly engaging with everything is alien to them. They don't understand.
There is an internal logic to this because it's all instant gratification now. That's what leads into this behavior, is that it's instant gratification. So they are impatient enough. Like the concept of delayed gratification is what is alien to them.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the massive problem with society nowadays. How do you explain a soy jack to a 60-year-old? That's an interesting concept. Also, Porian said earlier, have you talked to them about VTubers yet? They have a gigantic television right in there, and I've never seen it turned on. I would really love to put on a Kirschi stream for them at some point. Or I think maybe they'd also like somebody like Mari_en, because I know several older people who have found her streams to be extremely interesting and entertaining. It might happen.
As with any medium, you have to know your audience. The kind of thing is like, okay, what do you want to listen to? Like, what are you interested in? You can't just throw on any random stream. It's like, okay, what do you want?
Oh yeah, I agree absolutely. Like there's a guy in there who I'm not sure how old he is. He's definitely retirement age. I think he's like late 60s or so. And I remember when I was first in there, I was sitting at the tea table and thinking to myself, but before I really knew anybody, and I was thinking to myself, how on earth am I going to talk to these guys? Like, I could engage with their conversations, but I was thinking to myself, I'm on their level, but I don't really see how we're going to be able to talk about anything I'd be interested in. And so this guy turns to me and he says, so, young man, have you ever heard of Jordan Peterson? I'm just like, yeah, actually I have. And then we had like a 2-hour-long conversation about Jordan Peterson's stuff and the streams that he does on YouTube and all of that kind of stuff. And it turns out this guy is a massive addict of Linux, and he set up the PC in there to run Linux. And
much to the consternation of everyone else.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else uses that computer except him, because again, it's Linux. But yeah, but I was genuinely shocked at how on the ball he was. I mean, he was using terms like SJW and talking about stuff on Twitter. And so there's definitely people. Go on, sorry.
I've mentioned this before. The people who are always on top of the current trends, especially when it comes to technology, are really rare, but I do love encountering them. And you have to treasure that guy, because he is an old fart who has always been about technology and always will be about technology and stuff. And they are blessings.
Oh yeah, he's a retired policeman too, so he can really he's got some stories to tell. I mean, a policeman in Ireland has absolutely seen some shit.
Well, I'm sure he busted some heads during the Troubles, so that's why.
Oh yeah, well this is like the far south of Ireland. Honestly, the further south in Ireland you go, the more the Troubles seem like a distant memory. I mean, that's the thing about Ireland. You can't go along a highway or whatever without seeing some standing stone with an inscription on it saying, you know, somebody or other was shot to death here by the IRA, or some brave IRA member took a tea caddy to a British officer's head or something. Like, the history is there, but the people are just like, yeah, that was the last generation. Again, the generational gap in Ireland is extremely large. I would say that it's almost on par with somewhere like India, because Ireland is very much like India in that it exports most of its skilled labor. It sends them overseas to places like America. But when they come back, they've been Americanized or they've been Europeanized, and what they do with their money is they just build big, ugly houses in the countryside and shut themselves off and never interact with the neighborhood.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And again, the globalism is a horrible killer of communities. Like I said earlier in the stream, before I really got my thoughts together, how much the culture of Britain was destroyed by immigration, and it really was just a case of, I mean, to be honest, the English were extremely racist for a long time, and the kind of migrants that they got back in those days were genuinely pretty useful people to the country, that England necessarily needed a strong external labor force, because again, all the young people were dead from the world wars. The English needed a generation of rest, pretty much. But
make racism great again.
Pardon, sorry?
Make racism great again.
It's not even so much racism, it's this... I honestly, again, I've heard that quote. I don't know where it's from. If somebody could enlighten me where it is, that, the demand for racism has never more exceeded the supply than today. Because,
well, yeah, that's why it's manufactured now, like the Jussie Smollets of the world.
Yeah, it's enormously manufactured. I mean, even with somewhere like the Irish people are a great example of overall, despite their problems, they're fairly resistant to the whole forced diversity equity nonsense, because their attitude is, we are a very family-oriented culture, and if you're not part of our family and we don't accept you into our family, you're just not gonna get jobs offered to you. If you don't have a practical job, that you have a community of fellow. That was how the Polish had jobs here. Is that you would have like 30 or 40 Polish men come in, and they'd inhabit an apartment block, and they would go out and build roads as a group. And they would just get told, go here, build a road, and you'll get paid for it. But you can't do the thing where if you're a single Polish man, go into the local Irish economy and be like, yeah, I'm going to use my skills to get a job. It's not going to happen. Nobody is going to offer you a job. It just does not happen. And so they just leave. If there's not a critical mass of them to form their own independent workforce, then nobody just offers them a job.
It's almost like the mob structure works. I'm not kidding. That's literally the business model.
Yeah. Oh, the Irish are an intensely nepotistic people, like obscenely nepotistic too, and obscenely corrupt too. Like there is an entire house that is near where I live, which should not exist. The guy had planning permission for a 1-story bungalow, and he built a 3-story mansion with no planning permission. And when people complained, he just started sending like expensive bottles of whiskey around to the local planning department, and magically he got completely and totally illegal planning permission approved post facto. And it was a massive sore spot for the entire local community, because his house was hideous, disgusting, and everybody hated it. But he was able to get away with that because, again, he had enough money just to pay off the local planning department. And it was completely blatant. Like, nobody pretended it wasn't happening or anything. But, yeah, nothing you can do about it.
To be fair, UK zoning laws are ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, UK zoning laws are absurd, and Irish laws are getting that way. Again, that's the whole thing with the EU. The EU is a terrible influence, and I wish it would go away. I will give the EU credit. The EU...
Shit rolls downhill.
Yeah, the EU did a huge amount of good for Ireland. You can't dispute that. Ireland benefited immensely from the EU, particularly when it came to infrastructure and roadworks. Again, because all of the Polish construction companies came over with EU work licenses. Because
well, of course the EU did good. The EU runs on the Chinese business model of like, okay, we'll set you up with infrastructure. After that, there we own your ass.
Yeah, I can't deny that. I can't deny that at all. I absolutely can't deny that. But
at least you have roads now.
Oh yeah, Irish infrastructure is amazing. Irish roads are fantastic. I remember going to America and being astonished at how terrible the roads were. It appalled me how in the middle of an inner city there were roads with like 3-foot deep holes in them. That would never happen in Ireland. You can go for 100 miles in any direction and not encounter a single pothole on any main road.
Come to Canada, you'll cry.
I will never come to Canada. Canada is not on my short list of countries that I want to visit.
Yeah, you'll get the maid treatment the instant you come in. But as far as the roads go, we have, again, winter and the freeze-thaw cycle.
Yeah, it's terrible. But I mean, the thing about Ireland is that the Irish people are very good at not doing work, and that is another cultural thing. The Irish people and it's ironic. Well, maybe it's not ironic because of the history of Ireland. The Irish were the manual labourers of the British Empire for hundreds of years, and now they have their independence. The last thing they want to do is touch a shovel. Because that's the thing, and now that the Polish people have more or less gone away, you can see how terrible the maintenance teams are, because you can see a group of 10 Irish workmen out doing a job, and 9 of them will be sitting around having tea, and the 10th, who is always the youngest, and obviously the newest one who joined, will be 6 foot down a hole with a single shovel.
Oh, that goes for everywhere.
Oh yeah, I suppose it does, but again, like every person that I know who was hired, like Polish or apparently the Romanians have an amazing reputation for manual labor in Ireland. A guy said that you hire a Romanian group, they will do 10 times the work for 1/5 the price of any Irish construction company. And what he says that what's more remarkable is they won't shortchange you either. They will actually do the job you tell them to do. But all you've got to do is make sure you give them 3 tea breaks a day. If you don't, then, well, you're not getting your money's worth out of them. But if you accommodate their extremely specific cultural desires for like hours off, then they are completely unbeatable in terms of the quality they give you.
I like what Porian said. Almost like it's never worth it in the end to use cheap foreign labor. Wow.
Yeah, I think that it's like economics is based on supply and demand, and if you try and artificially force supply, and if you try and artificially force demand, it never works out. Like they're a legit with these laborers, they will do good jobs because what they get out of it is still a decent wage for what they have back at home. So most of them will just send money back to their families. And I see no problem with that, really. I think that it's perfectly reasonable for somebody to, well, I mean, any country does it. It's you move to a country, you get a better wage than you would get back home, and you send the money back home. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just when people get too used to that, and once that economic bubble naturally pops, they go, oh no, we don't actually want to pay any our essential workers any more than we were able to get away with paying these immigrants and migrants. And then your infrastructure just collapses. I mean, England is experiencing that right now with all of its medical industry and all of its like caregiving industry, because nobody wants to work. No, I think that there was it also happens in farms as well. Like all labor in English farms is foreign. And there was a right-wing like group in England that was saying stuff like, oh, these foreigners are coming over and they're stealing good English jobs that we could put people to work on these farms that would help our native unemployment. And like this farmers bureau contacted them and said, you do realize that we have had that every year we put out job postings for native help. In 5 years, not a single person who is a native English person has applied for any one of these jobs. Not a single one. And these are jobs that pay like £15 an hour. But it's manual labor, so no native English person wants to do it.
Well, that's an overall problem in the world right now and stuff, is that most people nowadays have an overinflated sense of worth.
Yeah.
So it's like I had like one of my part of breaking kids out of university and training them to do geology work and stuff was like, it's like, oh, I'm not. Mostly it was just like, oh, I'm overqualified to do this. It's like, motherfucker, you're gonna pick up that rock, you're gonna bang on that rock, and you're gonna look at that rock. You're not gonna get the helper to do your work for you. You're gonna have to do that shit too, there, son.
Yeah, and I remember Louis Rossmann on one of his earlier videos, he was talking about the difficulty of finding new people to work in his computer repair shop. And he was talking about software engineers because he had to get somebody in to fix a software error on his PC that he couldn't handle himself because he's a hardware specialist. And he said this guy comes out and he doesn't understand how to plug in a monitor. He says, I've never had to plug in a monitor before, and I won't try. He says he wanted me to do that for him. And like,
yeah, that's the world we live in now.
Yeah, it's insane. It's ridiculous. And again, like Porian said in the chat, it's never worth it in the end to use. No, it's not perfectly reasonable to let foreigners drain money out of your country. But the thing is, that, again, it's a function of the economy. If you have people who believe that they are they are above certain jobs and refuse to do it, what's the alternative? You can't force people to work when they don't want to.
Well, it's also a self-imposed conclusion because it is an end result of something. You make a potential workforce that's too self-important to do the actual work. Companies try to apply for local native help. Oh, they can't do it, so they have to import.
Yeah.
Again, by design.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That is another good point.
Well, that's literally what they do in Canada. Like, the visa program is literally based on that. Like, I've talked with HR people who are saying, like, oh yeah, we put up a job posting. Tee hee, no one applied. Hee 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 hee. Okay, we have to import all the Indians now.
I know. But like, I would blame that on the education system and how people have been taught that unless they get a degree in some useless thing that is completely oversaturated, they amount to nothing.
Yeah. The consequences of the participation trophy system.
Yeah, you can go round and round in circles about all this, but
well, yeah, that's the thing, because everything feeds into something else. It's all tied together.
Yeah, it is a circle. Like, an economy is a living thing. You can't just cut out one organ and fix it and expect the rest to work while you're digging away and poking the bit that you just cut out.
Don't tell that to Argentina.
Like, I worked IT and currently have programming socks, so this hurts a lot. Maybe the programming socks wouldn't hurt so much if you removed the butt plug that came with them. Hell, I'd do geo work if I didn't require a university diploma. Yeah, the epidemic of useless and... it was, ironically, something that I was talking to my family about literally just today, is that I was talking about... Because I already talked about the issue with autism and mental health and so on, is that the useless... Because, to me, autism is probably one of the easiest things to diagnose, because it has such obvious clinical presentation, and like I'm not sure if you've ever encountered this, but in my experience, a lot of people with autism say they can see somebody else with autism almost instantly, and it's common enough that I do not understand why you need something like a 10-year-long educational system in order to tell that somebody who very, very blatantly has a condition has a condition.
Much like orange tabbies, you all share the same brain cell. So you just know each other.
Yeah, it is, and it seems like such a logical, sane thing. But again, the issue is that if you look at the NHS, the NHS has a massive labor shortage, and so a lot of its psychiatric assistants are contractors who work for private health companies. And the health companies are paid based on the results that their doctors get. And so if their doctors are given 100 patients or 100 psychiatric patients, and they're told, hey, there's something wrong with these people, diagnose them, and they say, no, actually, they're just feckless, useless idiots who have never been taught how to live well or live decently, then they're not getting paid. Whereas if they say, oh yeah, all these people have like multiple different mental disorders that require urgent psychiatric counseling, which conveniently we also provide, yeah, then they get paid, and then they get more labor. It's like my friend Alex says, that there's no consultancy firm ever that will tell you, yeah, you don't need our help, you're fine as you are.
Well, that's just bad business.
Yeah, exactly. It's bad business. Nobody has any incentive to not be, well, to not be as lecherous of the system as possible. It's easy. Just ask them if they like Sonic ponies or VTubers. Does that mean you can tell which of my Oshis are autistic just by listening to them? Super duper, that would imply that any of your Oshis aren't autistic. Also, I'm glad I was a Mexican laborer because it means I have no issue getting hands dirty on anything except cars. Too paranoid of it falling on me. Yeah. Like, the level of practical skills in the world has decreased by such an unfathomable extent that it astonishes me. I think I've told this story before, but, like, the landlord that I currently have, he made his money by going to America after being raised as an Irish farmer and realizing he could charge people $30 in America to screw in a light bulb. And that was something like 40 or 50 years ago. That was how bad the trade system was in America 40 years ago. And now it's something like 4 or 5 times as bad.
Oh, easily. I see it all the time. It definitely is.
Yeah. And again, it's not as if the trade schools are unaware of this. All the trade schools say every time they're asked, yeah, we desperately need new people. We don't even charge much for our diplomas. Like, you can go through like a 2 or 3 year carpentry course for a very reasonable sum of money, and you can go out and you can immediately be earning like in the upper 25% income bracket easily. It's just nobody wants to do it.
I've told people before, I ripped out and redone all the plumbing in my house by myself, and they're like, "How?" I'm like, "I just did it.
Yeah,
it's not that hard."
Yeah. Did you use YouTube or anything like that?
No, I just have common sense and know how to glue ABS pipe together.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's true.
Like, the only thing you have to worry about for plumbing is making sure that the what comes in is going through copper piping, and whatever when it goes out, who gives a shit?
Yeah, pretty much. It's the same thing with us. It's like all the local plumbing was done by our landlord, and he just used bits of old hose pipe that have lasted for 25 years.
Yeah. Like, the only thing I won't touch with my house is the electrical, and I'm perfectly fine bringing an electrician for that. But everything else, I'll do myself.
Yeah, I agree. I would not touch electronics. But even then, I know how to wire a light bulb and so on. Which, I mean, nobody does. And it's almost, what astonishes me the most is that there has become this stigma of manual labor, that if you are the presentation of an electrician or a plumber or a plasterer is that these are in some way dirty, unintelligent people who kind of live in the underbelly of the world, doing the low energy jobs that aren't glamorous, that aren't interesting, whereas the reality is totally different. It is completely different. Most of these people, especially if you talk to them, are usually the most they're very intelligent, and they're very also because their jobs require an immense amount of skill, an immense amount of intuition. They're often very well educated, and they're very interesting to speak to.
I don't know, like I have a technical skill and stuff, and even then, like between jobs, like after the recession and stuff, I literally worked at a recycling sorting plant and stuff. Like I'm not scared to get my hands dirty and stuff, and I have no self like I don't know snootiness or whatever. It's like fuck it, I need the work. I don't care what it is.
Yeah, I completely agree. And imagine not thinking trades aren't gigachads. Yeah, and it's embarrassing how weak men have become. It's like that on KF. What version of KF is currently up? Let me just faff around.
ST. Actually, no. Well, I know ST is working right now, and Josh got like the cert back. So I don't know.
Oh, good. So did Epic stop pestering him?
Pretty much, from what I understand, is that a lot of people bitched. It made them look bad, and they relinquished the keys so Josh can go off site now.
Yeah, with this guy, yeah, that's blood. I'm not going to show that. But yeah, Hunter Avallone, he was attacked in his house by an ex-boyfriend of his girlfriend who shot through the door and wounded his girlfriend. And
oh, that thing, yeah.
Yeah, I watched the video of this, and the guy, I'm pretty sure somebody else in the thread says he owns firearms. Maybe he got, I think some people say he might have gotten rid of them. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he used to be quote unquote conservative, but then he took the left pill.
Oh, I see. Yeah. And when this event happens, it's almost surreal to watch the footage. And his girlfriend is shot, and he's live streaming this. Well, he's not live streaming it, but he's recording it. And his girlfriend is shot, and she starts to bleed, and she starts to manage her wound. And this guy turns the camera on her and films her as she's trying to stem the bleeding from her blasted leg. And then, after the shooter leaves, he actually leaves his girlfriend and follows after the shooter to try and record him until the guy shoots himself. And it's like, and Kirsche was saying on her stream when she looked at it, you know, what kind of man doesn't, you know, I would never be able to look at a man like this with respect ever again after he did this. His first instinct wasn't to put himself between his girlfriend and the attacker. His first instinct when she was shot wasn't to try and help her physically and help her injury. And instead his mind was, oh, I've got to film this. I mean, I could have understood it if he'd turned the recording feature on and then just dropped the phone to record audio. That would take like 2 seconds. I could accept that instinct. It's probably something that I would do, but what kind of man does that when your girlfriend is attacked? It's just baffling to me.
You are falling into the classic blunder of referring to him as a man. There's the linchpin of the situation. Sorry, boys. Yep.
It's all so tiresome. It's all so tiresome. I mean, I'm a pacifist. Well, my religion tells me I should be a pacifist, but I do like to think that if I was ever in a situation like that, I would at the very least act in my own self-defense.
I'm a pacifist. I'm a pacifist in the Geneva Convention sense.
But I just go on. Sorry, you first.
It exists for a reason, and it's guys like me is the reason why they exist.
Yeah, it's just like when I was younger, I used to think that Europeans were much saner than Americans. I used to enjoy talking to Europeans far more than I did Americans, and then sometime around, I would say, the early 2020s, a little bit before that, maybe 2019 or so, I started talking to them about, say, more mature and adult topics, especially things like personal defense and gun legislation and all that kind of stuff. And it horrified me, the number of people who said some things like, "Oh no, even if I were to act in my own self-defense to physically fend off somebody who was attacking me, I would still be wrong and I would be evil for doing that." And I'm not talking about religious people either. Like, I know some fundamentalist Christians who are extreme pacifists who would say, no, I would not even raise a hand to somebody attacking me because I think that would make me evil in the eyes of God. Now, these weren't pacifists. These weren't religious people. These were, the atheist sort, and they were saying, no, I would be evil if I defended myself. I can't imagine why anyone would ever use a gun in their self-defense. There's no justification for shooting back at somebody, even if they shoot you first. You're an evil person if you do something like that. And I was just like, what? What is wrong with you?
You're not a pacifist unless you're capable of extreme violence. You're harmless.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's what it comes down to. It's like you're harmless. You're not a pacifist. You are harmless.
Yeah. These people have been taught to be harmless, and it just turned me off Europeans entirely because they felt so spineless. Be peaceful, not harmless.
Europe is not alone in this and stuff, but I've been saying this on my streams as of late. The pendulum is swinging back and is going to swing back hard, and I am all for it.
Yeah. I think that it is swinging back, but I also think that it's just going to be a different flavor of insanity, because I think a great example is Josh and Libs of TikTok, because like Josh said he'd been following Libs of TikTok for a while, and then they randomly come out with this condemnation of that terribly made Israeli shooter thing where you play as a terrorist and kill IDF soldiers. And Libs of TikTok was like, ban this sick filth, think of the children. And Josh is just like, yeah, I'm unsubscribing, I hate you. This is a massive betrayal of everything you've stood for up till now. And it's the same with Glenn Greenwald, who I really enjoy watching, because like he's a pretty leftist guy, but he's always been very much free speech in favor of, and he's hated by the left for his attitude on free speech. And he said, when I first started going against the left on topics of free speech, I made an awful lot of conservatives were suddenly my friends and were saying things like that. Yeah, it's dreadful the way everything is censored these days. We have to fight back against it. We're there for you on the free speech platform. And yet, when Palestine and Israel start shooting at each other, the right is immediately like, no, we have to censor everything to do with this war in Israel and Palestine. We can't let any narrative but the pro-Israel one be heard from. And he's just like, you guys, you're not even pretending, are you? Like, you lied to me for years, and it's absurd that what you're doing right now. But there isn't even an attempt to justify it. They're just like, no, this is something we think should be censored, so we're just going to censor it.
Well, that's why I'm not a bigot. I hate everyone equally, and you should too. Let's not play favorites.
Yeah. That's why I am so grateful that I live in a country where people, for the moment, are just generally able to ignore the government no matter what it says. I think that will change, unfortunately, but I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts.
Just enjoy the shit show.
Yeah, well, again, that's why I'm religious, because there's no earthly institution that's ever given me hope for the future. Nothing will make
God has a sense of humor. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, it's funny. I have been taught religion my entire life, but nothing has made me believe religion more than 10 minutes talking with a dedicated atheist.
Well, there's a reason why I'm agnostic. I hate both of you guys equally.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that all religions are good or anything. There's plenty of insane and stupid religions are out there, but the alternative, again, it's like I've said before in chat, like the Enlightenment era and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race.
Well, I consider religious people gamblers, and they're just making a safe bet. Am I wrong?
I mean, I would politely dispute with you on that, but I mean, it's like how long have I been live now? Like 2.5 hours at least?
Yeah. Well, no, the long and short of it is, it's like the answer to the God question is like, okay, can you either prove it or disprove it? Whether or not you'd have to make the safe bet of like, yeah, screw it, I'm a believer kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
I mean, I'd have a bit of a deeper view in that, but I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, and I think that's a fairly rational view overall. I'd much rather.
Well, again, it's like not like I'm saying you're wrong.
One of the great things about, say, Canada is that it's so huge that you can effectively disappear from the government. Yeah, I've seen some fascinating videos about the isolate. And again, the moment you get outside the big cities in Canada, you see the kind of community spirit that you saw in Ireland or even England 50 or 60 years ago. Because people are, ironically, they are isolated, and so they can form strong intercommunity bonds. They're not having to deal with this vast influx of people they have no connection with. And again,
your conversation earlier of saying like, people at a pub and then a stranger comes in and suddenly everything goes quiet.
Yeah.
I see that all the goddamn time.
Yeah. And the thing is, it doesn't matter whether that person is malicious or not. Their skin color doesn't matter. The simple fact that they are an outsider of any capacity is enough to break that bond. Sorry.
God bless tribalism.
Yeah. I mean, tribalism has its uses. It definitely has its uses. Police will never help you, only trust your fists. Sadly, I can say yes on that in that regard. All the self-defense chads died in one of the wars. Yeah, and Grant saying Weimar looks like a joke. Yep, I mean, it's like my friend Alex likes to use the phrase late stage Weimar an awful lot, and I can't disagree with him. What did the fox send him that he's so quiet? What are you talking about? What are you talking about, username?
Obviously her nudes, of course.
No, I can qualitatively deny that I am in possession of any VTuber's nudes. That is not a thing that I have been cursed with. What am I looking at? Let me just look back at Discord for half a second or so. Are people still looping about the Fujoshi stuff? I can see a lot of reactions, so it's definitely M in chat. Wait, has she changed her name to Melanated Content? What's going on?
I think that's a reference into a preview for her next art piece drop, I think. I don't follow. I love M, but I don't follow her super close and stuff. I just wait for people to post the inevitable art.
I have no idea who M is. Like, what is the deep lore on M? Again, she never says anything. I don't even know how people know that she's a woman. Does she have other social media or something?
I think it's largely inferred information and stuff. Like I made the waiting to see her for affinity account joke a while back, but that was that might have been a little too on point. I don't know. After a while, you kind of suss out things. After a while, don't get me wrong. I love M. M's very entertaining.
Yes, it's certainly amusing to watch her go at the Southern South American persuasion people. What's this posted here? The lead candidate for Mexico's 2024 presidential election is a Zionist Jew named Claudia Scheinbaum in a country where out of a population of 130 million, only 40,000 are Jews. How could this happen? Stop noticing.
Good question. Next question.
Yes, we don't talk about that kind of thing here. Unless it's idlecore.
Or cyber life.
In another step towards the censorship of Soyjack Party, the domain has been removed from the Wayback Machine. Oh no.
Oh yeah, I saw that earlier. I forgot to mention it.
Oh no. Anyway. M reacts positively to BL comments, ergo female. M is suspected. Wait. Thrang, I think your comment just got filtered. I saw it for 2 seconds and then it just vanished.
I got the improved chat. The full message is M is suspected of being a woman because of behavior, emoji usage, and art style interests. It's either a woman or a gay man / troon.
Now, a gay man or a troon would absolutely not be able to resist speaking at this point, I think.
I don't know. I could go either way on this. Like M is Schrodinger's artist at this point. So you know what? Let's not ruin the mystique. M has the mystique. Let's just leave it be.
Yes, I'm very interested on where we go next in that particular saga.
Can we just not and say we did?
I don't know. I don't
know.
Yeah, it automatically made me retract. Oh, I see. Yeah, you think that got filtered. Yeah, I think it did. Which is hilarious, because troon just means female, just means transgender goon. That's from Something Awful.
Doesn't matter. It's unapproved language, man.
Oh yeah, like the OK symbol. Is that still considered a hate symbol, or did that kind of die down?
It kind of died down, but I still remember the initial 4chan post that made it and stuff.
I know.
That was a good time.
Literally rent-free. That would make Harrow female as well. No, I remember we've heard Harrow's voice. Harrow is most definitely a male.
At some point, I am unhooked to have Harrow on for a chatting stream and stuff, but it keeps getting pushed back for one reason or another.
Catch him when he's on his meds.
Well, that's kind of the linchpin. Waiting on the meds and stuff. It will happen eventually, and I'm looking forward to it and stuff, and it's probably going to be very interesting.
It should be very interesting to see. What was the thing? Oh yeah, thoughts on CyberLive. I think I'm going to be doing a stream at the weekend to see how this evolves, because yeah, I've read through that document that was posted on the woman whose name I can't remember right now. So the one thing that I am interested in is that somebody has... Sorry, somebody says something. Why does everybody start talking to me when I'm streaming? I swear. I think it was one of the where is it? Yeah, it's Murray that said it. Murray that said this, actually. Notice that not once in the document does the guy ever mention having a real life conversation with this woman. It was all calls and texts and even a letter. Yeah, if this was an online-only relationship, that adds to the cringe factor by about 10,000.
It's over 9,000.
I consistently find reasons to be embarrassed on behalf of the rest of humanity.
As you should.
But yeah, I will cover this stuff. I think by the weekend we'll have a lot more information about this, as well as other stuff that's worth talking about. So we'll see how things go. And it has been 3 hours? No, it's just 2:53, and I am starting to get rather hungry too, so I think I will call it a night here overall. Unless there is anything else that people desperately want me to comment on.
They want you to get on with it, is what they want to do.
Are you sure, guys? Do you not want to hear my beautiful soft tones whispering delicately in your ear for another little while? Nothing good ever comes from online relationships. Well, I suppose if you mean a romantic relationship, then I can't disagree with you overall. I like that Zenlar references classic internets. Yeah, he's, you know, a late-stage millennial like me. voice changer like Super Duper. The OK symbol was trending.
It's not even that it's a voice changer. It's a bad voice changer. I'll never get over that. It's a bad voice changer.
Oh yeah. Oh dear. Poor Super Duper. Well.
Super duper love.
All right, lads. My voice genuinely is starting to go. I have not had streaming for a long time, so my voice is no longer trained for the marathon. And I actually just have to dig through the forest of tabs to actually find my live streaming panel. Here it is. Thank you all for joining me for this. I'll probably have some more commentary on it next time I stream. But I'm very grateful for everybody who's stuck with me. It's nice to see that people are coming back, even though I haven't been streaming for a while. Because of my autism, because of my ADHD, it's very hard for me to be massively consistent about this stuff. Sometimes I just don't want to do anything. Other times I'm like, I wake up in the morning and think, yeah, I'm going to do a stream tonight. So things might be a bit erratic. But I had great fun tonight, and I'm more than looking forward to doing more stuff over the weekend. So I will say good night to everybody here. And I just came in VOD time. Yeah, you get VOD time, and you don't have to deal with the occasional desyncs either, so have fun with that. Let me just look at my thing. Yep, it's good. All right, lads, I will see you when I see you. How do I've forgotten how to end stream. Ah, yes, it's that button. Okay, good night. Good night.
Later.